Chapter 590. Soon after, Hopu took Lin Jigui back to the deepest part of the star mineral vein, where a magnificent formation was slowly rotating. At the front, there was a gate with complicated galaxies carved on it. Hopu pointed to the gate and said, "Mr. Lin, to tell you the truth, there should be a mysterious treasure here. Unfortunately, the leaders and I are not strong enough to open the gate, so we can't go in and explore it. The condition I mentioned just now is to invite many masters of the Dark Thunder Guards to break the formation together, and then the Huangchuan tribe will only take 30% of the things inside. What do you think, Mr. Lin?" Lin Jigui did not answer Hopu, because his face was full of surprise and greed at this time. I'm rich. However, he did not fully believe Hopu's words. He pointed at the gate, and suddenly the fierce thunder gang chi burst out and instantly hit the gate. However, the gate did not move. Lin Jigui finally believed Hopu's words. A few masters of the gang spirit realm could not open the gate. He was afraid that only masters of the oneness of heaven and men realm could do it in person. Only Li Zhangtao had this strength in the Dark Thunder Guards. He said, "I'll report this to Mr. Li. Before we arrive, no one is allowed to get close to this place. After it's done, you will definitely benefit." "Mr. Lin, don't worry. Even a fly can't fly in," Hopu assured. Then Lin Jigui rushed back to the Dark Thunder Mansion at full speed to report. At this time, two figures suddenly appeared beside Hopu. They were Leng Shiqi and Feng Shamo. Hopu immediately said, "Mr. Lu is really a genius. Everything is exactly as you expected." Leng Shiqi said coldly, "The Dark Thunder Guards of Ningyan County are all insatiable. In order to kill Li Zhangtao, I have planned for many years. This formation will be his grave. Chief Hopu, when Li Zhangtao comes here with his men, you only need to do this." On the other side, among the Dark Thunder Guards of Ningyan County, Li Zhangtao had just returned from the Discipline Commission. At this moment he was reading a secret report carefully. According to the secret report, when the Baron Chuan tribe annihilated the Qin family of Blazing Sun City, a mysterious man appeared and killed the Qin family's patriarch, Qin Chuling, in 3 moves. Li Zhangtao was a little concerned about this mysterious person. Since this person had made a move in the Qin clan, could he have also participated in the battle to destroy the Water Cloud cult and the Wilderness tribe? Who on earth was this mysterious person? Why would he help the Baron Chuan tribe? More importantly, the time when the Huangchuan tribe suddenly went to destroy the Water Cloud cult overlapped with the time when the Leng Shiqi disappeared. Therefore, Li Zhangtao could not help but have a bizarre idea in his mind. Could the mysterious man be Leng Shiqi? However, according to the intelligence, the spiritual technique used by the mysterious man when he killed Qin Chuling was obviously a star cultivation method, which had nothing to do with the Leng Shiqi. This made Li Zhangtao a little uncertain. Just as he was deep in thought, Lin Jigui ran in with an excited expression, interrupting his thoughts. Li Zhangtao's expression darkened. He hated being disturbed the most. Lin Jigui also knew this, but he could not care less. He said happily, "Sir, great news. Don't make a fuss. Have you retrieved the treasure?" "No, there are no treasures under the Star Point mineral vein." Lin Jigui shook his head at first but immediately changed the topic. "But there are treasures in there." "What did you say?" Li Zhangtao immediately stood up, looking pleasantly surprised. "I dare not lie to you, sir. It's like this." Then Lin Jigui told him what happened in the Star Point mineral vein and Hopu's conditions. Li Zhangtao immediately laughed. "Haha, a secret treasure. From your description, it must be a secret treasure passed down from ancient times. There are countless natural treasures in there. You did well." "Thank you, sir. But should we agree to Hopu's conditions?" "Well, agree first. Now it seems that the secret treasure is not so easy to open, and there may be some dangers inside. Let the people of the Baron Chuan tribe go in with us and let them take the lead," Li Zhangtao said with a cold smile. "You are so wise, sir." Lin Jigui flattered him again without saying anything. Li Zhangtao pondered for a moment and ordered, "Call Li Liang here and gather more people. We will set off now." "Yes." Lin Jigui agreed quickly, but he felt a little uncomfortable. Li Liang was also one of the 4 great supervisors of Ningyan County, with the cultivation of the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm. However, it was Lin Jigui who discovered the secret treasure from the beginning to the end. Why should he share the benefits with Li Liang? But he had no choice. Li Liang's surname was Li, and he was a close relative of Li Zhangtao. The Dark Thunder Guards mobilized people very quickly. In less than half an hour, dozens of Dark Thunder envoys in Spiritual Pulse Realm and 7 supervisors in Spiritual Aperture Realm had gathered at the gate of Dark Thunder Mansion. Li Zhangtao led Lin Jigui and Li Liang to the front. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Soon, masters gathered in front of the Starlight Gate under the star mineral vein. There were several leaders and many elite warriors led by Hop, as well as the Dark Thunder Guards led by Li Zhangtao. But this strength was enough to challenge a first-rate sect. At this time, Li Zhangtao was looking at the Starlight Gate seriously. He clenched his fist, and a long spear appeared in his hand. As soon as this spear appeared, the narrow underground space was immediately shrouded in waves of killing intent and extreme coldness. Hopu focused his eyes and his expression changed. He recognized that this spear was a 7th-order treasure, the 10 Directions Drifting Snow Spear. This spear was made by the god Broken Mountain a few years ago, and it caused a sensation at that time. But unexpectedly, this floating snow spear fell into Li Zhangtao's hands. "Back off!" Li Zhangtao shouted. His body surged with a majestic aura of spirit energy, making the spiritual pulse realm cultivators unable to breathe. Everyone retreated. They knew that Li Zhangtao was going to use all his strength to break the array. Extreme cold aura gathered on the floating snow spear. Li Zhangtao stabbed out and instantly, a monstrous aura surged. This spear seemed to pierce through the heavens and earth. Endless frost aura exploded in front of this spear. The spear was like a dragon, like a river flowing east, breaking through the Starlight Gate. Boom! With a deafening sound, the entire underground space began to shake violently. Gravel fell as if it would collapse at any time. But everyone's eyes were locked on the gate. Could Li Zhangtao's all-out attack break through the Starlight Gate? When the light and dust dissipated, everyone saw that there was a hole in the middle of the door that was as wide as a person. The Dark Thunder Guards immediately cheered. Lin Jigui immediately flattered, "Lord Li's divine ability is unparalleled. A mere array can be broken with a flip of your hand. I admire you." Li Zhangtao's aura was a little chaotic, but before he could say anything, Hopu led his men and walked over. Chapter 591. Li Zhangtao stopped Hopu with his spirit spear and sneered, "What? I tried my best to open the passage, but you want to go in first? Do you deserve it?" Hopu's face immediately turned blue and red, as if he was trying hard to suppress the anger in his heart, but he finally stepped aside. Li Zhangtao snorted and led the Dark Thunder Guards into the gap one by one. Hapa, on the other hand, had only brought along the other 3 chiefs of the Barren River tribe. During the battle, the 4 of them had been at the very back, so Li Zhangtao hadn't noticed them. In addition, the 2 masters of the gang spirit realm of the fallen Maple sect were not here. They had returned to their sect. After all, they only agreed to help attack the Wilderness tribe. If they had known that Leng Shiqi was going to deal with the Dark Thunder Guards, they would never have agreed. So Leng Shiqi simply let them go. Besides, he couldn't completely trust the people of the fallen Maple sect. He couldn't make any mistakes in his plan, so he was a little worried about leaving the 2 behind. When they came in, they were all shocked by the scene in front of them. Especially the hall bathed in starlight. Looking from a distance, they could feel the treasure inside. Some people squatted on the ground and knocked on the ground, making a dong-dong sound. The floor tiles don't seem to be ordinary. Let's not talk about the high grade, but the purity is extremely rare. Everyone from the Dark Lightning Guards revealed a look of joy. This was indeed a treasure. However, Hopu took a step forward again. This time, all the Dark Thunder Guards glared at him. Even Li Zhangtao had some killing intent. Hopu suddenly cupped his fists and said, "Please calm down. I think it's too quiet here. I'm afraid it will explode, so I want to have a try first." Hearing this, Li Zhangtao laughed. It was good that someone took the initiative to take the risk. He said, "I see. It seems that you have misunderstood. Leader Hopu, please." Hopper then took out an ordinary star point stone, but there was an inconspicuous red dot on it. He then threw the star point stone forward, and the stone rolled along the road. The star point stone rolled all the way to the entrance of the hall. During this time, everyone only heard the sound of the stone rubbing against the ground. Other than that, nothing else happened. Li Zhangtao was secretly delighted. This also meant that the distance from here to the main hall was safe. He shouted, "Let's go." Next, the Dark Lightning Guards swarmed towards the main hall, completely ignoring Hopu and the others. Hopper also showed a displeased look, but Li Zhangtao and the others didn't even look at them. However, they didn't notice that when all the Dark Thunder Guards walked in front of them, Hopper had a cold smile on his face. Li Zhangtao's group was very fast, and due to the difference in cultivation level, there was a gap between the front and the back. The group of Spirit Pulse Realm Dark Lightning envoys were at the back. Just as these dark thunder guards ran to the middle of the road, suddenly, ka-ka sounds rang out continuously, and strange statues appeared one after another. As soon as these statues appeared, they all raised their hands and suddenly the power of the stars shot out from their eyes. Li Jiangtao and the others were shocked. Hopu had clearly probed just now, so there shouldn't be any danger here. However, he immediately thought that maybe these statues could only sense living people. In fact, the star point stone that Hopu threw out just now had a drop of Lung Shichi's blood essence, so it didn't trigger this restriction. Li Jiangtao also knew that now wasn't the time to think too much, because at this time, several Spirit Pulse Realm Dark Lightning envoys had already died. His long spear shook, and waves of extremely cold spirit gangs surged out like ripples. Wherever it went, the power of the stars was all destroyed. Of course, the hundreds of statues didn't only have this ability. At this moment all the statues shook together and a strange power spread out. This power didn't seem like spiritual power, but the aura was comparable to a spirit aperture realm cultivator. This time, Li Jiangtao's expression was abnormally ugly. Facing hundreds of statues with the power of the spirit aperture realm, even he could fall here. What exactly was this place and why was there such a terrifying mechanism? He originally thought that this was only a secret treasure found under a medium-grade mine. Even if there was some danger, with his strength of unity of heaven and man realm, he could completely deal with it. But now he suddenly felt that he seemed to be a bit careless. A few thoughts flashed through Li Jiangtao's mind, and he quickly looked around as if looking for a way to close these statues. However, the statues didn't give them time to think. Hundreds of statues directly rushed towards the dark thunder guards closest to them, and in an instant flesh and blood flew everywhere, dyeing the sky red. As for Hopu and the other three leaders, they also went deep into the statues, but if anyone paid attention to them, they would realize that the statues didn't take the initiative to attack Hopu and the others. This was because Hopu and the others were all wearing a jade pendant. There was nothing special about this jade pendant, and it only had a drop of Lung Shichi's blood essence on it, so they were considered to be on the same side by the statues. And Hopu was using the statues as a cover, slowly approaching Li Jiangtao's side. There were endless screams. Most of the Dark Thunder Guards were only in the spiritual pulse realm, and there was almost no room for resistance in front of the statues. Only the 7 inspectors in the spiritual aperture realm could hold on for a while. However, the 7 of them were now besieged by multiple statues, and their lives were in danger. Lin Jigue and Li Liang were both masters in the gang spirit realm. The two of them could easily kill the statues without any intelligence, but they also knew that this was not a long-term plan. Li Jiangtao looked for a while and couldn't find anything like the eye of the formation, so he had to sweep his long spear. Suddenly, the temperature in this small space plummeted, and even snowflakes and ice crystals fell from the sky. The floating snow spear of 10 directions stabbed repeatedly, and the new moon swept across. Terrifying ice and snow gang raged, and in the blink of an eye, a large number of statues were destroyed, creating a vacuum within 1,000 feet of him. The remaining dozen or so people immediately gathered around him. Li Jiangtao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He had painstakingly trained these Dark Thunder Guards. Now, in less than half an incense stick's worth of time, only these few people were left. His heart was bleeding. "Your Excellency Li, let me help you." Hopu smashed several statues in front of him with a heavy punch, shouted loudly, and surrounded him with the other 3 leaders. Li Jiangtao also nodded and said, "Leader Hopu is really wise. Now we are in danger, and only by joining hands can we survive and find the secret treasure." That's. Hopu had already come to Li Jiangtao's side. He smiled kindly, but he didn't finish his sentence. Immediately he clenched his fists and dozens of spells with ancient breath lit up all over his body. With a hum, a god of war shadow of more than 100 feet high emerged. Not only him but the other 3 leaders also did the same. For a moment, 4 phantoms surrounded Li Jiangtao, and 8 mountain-like fists fell on him. At the same time, a shocking illusory wind spiritual gang suddenly appeared, which could cut mountains and rivers. Finally, a strange evil beast flashed in the void, and countless colorful flowers floated down from the sky, shining in all directions, which were magnificent. In the face of this sudden attack, Li Jiangtao was shocked and angry. "Who dares to set me up?" Chapter 592. Eunuch Gao had a low opinion of Li Jiangtao, but no matter what, he was still a great master in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. He was also the inspector who had been in charge of Ningyan County for nearly 10 years. He still had the most basic shrewdness. He instantly saw that someone was deliberately setting up a trap against him. But at this critical moment he had no time to think about it. Facing the sneak attack of 6 masters of Gang Spirit Realm, even Li Zhangtao dared not to be careless. Because the 6 people who attacked him were all strong. The leaders of the Barren River tribe, led by Hopu, had grown from countless battles and had the support of ancient secret skills, so their strength was infinite. As for Feng Shamo and Leng Shiqi, there was no need to even mention them. They were definitely the best amongst their peers. Li Zhangtao held the long spear upside down, and the momentum of the spear changed. The spear momentum became soft, and the white light on the spear suddenly rolled back, and a terrible suction suddenly came. The white light condensed into a huge vortex, swallowing everything around it. Whether it was the shadow of the war god, the phantom wind blade, or thousands of sword chi, they were all swallowed up. As more and more energy was swallowed, the white vortex became bigger and bigger, and its color became more complex. Li Zhangtao's face also turned pale. It seemed that although he temporarily resolved the sneak attack of several people, he was also suffering. A touch of anger flashed across Li Zhangtao's face. Immediately, he directly detonated the strange vortex, and the terrible spiritual power burst out, madly spreading with him as the center. Everything touched by this energy, whether it was a statue or a spirit cultivator, was completely destroyed. Retreat. Leng Shiqi moved his feet and instantly retreated hundreds of feet away. Feng Shamo also moved his shadow and quickly left, but the speed of Hopu and the other 3 was far less fast. Although they retreated in advance, they were still affected by the power of the explosion. Fortunately, the ancient spell on their bodies offset a lot of power, and they were all slightly injured. The most unlucky ones were the Dark Thunder guards around Li Zhangtao. There were more than 10 people left, but now there were only 4 people left. Lin Jigui and Li Liang were also very depressed. They did not die under the siege of the many statues, but almost died in the hands of their own superior. But at this time they didn't care about this, especially Lin Jigui. He also saw that this wasn't a secret treasure. Clearly someone deliberately set them up to die. Lin Jigui recalled that from the moment his subordinates received the news, to him personally coming to check it out, and then going back to invite Li Zhangtao, all of this had been planned by someone. What was laughable was that Lin Jia had originally thought that his subordinate's detection ability was extremely strong, which was why he had detected the treasure under the Star Point mineral vein. Now it seemed that someone had deliberately leaked it to him. The other party had taken advantage of their greedy nature to set up this trap. For the first time Lin Jigui resented his own greed. Unfortunately he would not have the chance to correct it. Li Zhangtao didn't feel good either. He had been an inspector of Ningyan County for 10 years and was used to the feeling of being high and mighty. No force dared to provoke him, so he could take any benefits he wanted. After a long period of smooth sailing, his vigilance had slowly been worn down. In fact, there were some small flaws in the whole process. If he had maintained a high level of vigilance, he might have found something fishy. Unfortunately, it was useless for him to regret it now. He was staring at Leng Shiqi because Leng Shiqi had activated the wild evil demon blood beast body. He had 4 arms and a tail behind him. Li Zhangtao recognized his appearance. Leng Shiqi had used the wild evil demon blood beast body in the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters in Shantai County, so the relevant information about him had been collected long ago. After knowing that Leng Shiqi had been sent to Ningyan County to seize power, Li Zhangtao had also specially searched for all the information about Leng Shiqi. Naturally, he knew some of the characteristics of Leng Shiqi's spiritual techniques. He recognized Leng Shiqi and suddenly realized that after Leng Shiqi disappeared, he had secretly hidden in the Huangchuan tribe. Leng Shiqi had been behind all the big movements of the Wasteland tribe recently. No wonder the Huangchuan tribe, which was originally neither strong nor weak, suddenly became so fierce. They had destroyed 2 third-rate forces and the Wasteland tribe in succession, shocking the entire Ningyan County. Li Zhangtao was also secretly angry. Not long ago he had also found a flaw, but unfortunately he was interrupted by Lin Jigui before he could think about it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to come here so easily. Li Zhangtao was furious. He shouted hatefully, "Lu Xingji, it was you who did this. What are you trying to do?" What am I trying to do? Of course Lord Li knows." Leng Shiqi sneered. Coupled with his transformed appearance, he looked extremely evil. Then he transmitted his voice to Feng Shamo and Hopu, continued to retreat and accumulate power. Then all the surrounding statues rushed toward Li Zhangtao and the others. Although many of these statues had been destroyed, there were still 100 or 200 of them. Li Zhangtao and the others had consumed a lot of spiritual power after the successive battles. Seeing so many statues rushing toward them, their hearts sank. Even Li Zhangtao secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In the beginning, he had used about 20% of his spiritual power to open the Starlight Gate. Later, he had used another 10% to break many statues. The most important thing was that he had resisted the sneak attack of Leng Shiqi and the other 5 masters of Gang Spirit Realm and used one of his most powerful spiritual skills. At this time, his spiritual power was less than 50%. Li Zhangtao hurriedly swallowed a few elixirs to restore his spiritual power. Holding the floating snow spear in front of him, he looked like a man who could hold back 10,000 enemies. He said in a low voice, "You block the back. Leave the front to me." 100 or 200 statues swarmed forward, but Li Zhangtao could smash a dozen of them with a casual blow. Although Lin Jigui and the others were busy resisting, at least they could hold on for the time being. At this moment, Leng Shiqi made a move. The 4 arms on his body made a gesture at the same time. In an instant, he divided into 5 phantoms and scattered in the shape of a pentagon. Immediately, 5 formations of different colors emerged, but not on the ground but in the sky. At the same time, the whole space suddenly became hot and dry. Bursts of scorching air rushed toward them. Flames flashed across, and a complicated formation appeared on the ground. The spiritual power of the 5 Leng Shiqi surged wildly, even causing a small spiritual storm. Then countless streamers fell from the sky. On the ground, 9 thick golden fire pillars rose into the sky, and there was a faint dragon roar in the air. Leng Shiqi had displayed the rotating light formation and the 9 palaces fire formation at the same time. Li Zhangtao's extreme cold gang was greatly suppressed in an instant. He couldn't help but change his expression. However, Leng Shiqi's target was not him, but Lin Jigui and Li Liang. Chapter 593. In the rotating light formation, thousands of streamers of various colors covered the sky and earth. On the ground, the fire pillars of the golden dragon flame raged, destroying the world. Both the streamers and the fire pillars targeted Lin Jigui and Li Liang. It was true that Li Zhangtao was the most powerful opponent, but Lin Jigui and Li Liang were also masters of Gang Spirit Realm. Besides, they had coveted a lot of resources over the years. No one would believe that they didn't have any trump cards. If Leng Shiqi and others besieged Li Zhangtao and ignored these 2 people, accidents might happen. Therefore, they had to get rid of these 2 potential dangers first. Lin Jigui and Li Liang were also shocked. They didn't expect that Leng Shiqi would attack them first. What was more, they didn't expect that Leng Shiqi would be so powerful. Was this really the power of an early stage of Gang Spirit Realm? This was indeed the first time that Leng Shiqi had used all his strength after breaking through Gang Spirit Realm. After the breakthrough, the power of his wild demon blood beast body had also increased. In addition, his own strength was abnormal. At this time, his state was completely comparable to the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. In the sky and on the ground, there were colorful streamers and flames. Thunder exploded around Lin Jigui, and the violent power of thunder and lightning rushed around trying to resist. However, at this time, Feng Shamo also took action. He waved his 7th level precious weapon, Heaven-Hating Wind Saber. 2 small sabers flew out in a crisscross pattern which seemed to have no power. But the weird thing was that the 2 saber auras ignored the distance between them and all the streams of light and fire and instantly appeared in front of Lin Jigui. Lin Jigui was shocked. Who was this man? He had a 7th level precious weapon and such a strange spiritual skill. But he was still resisting Leng Shiqi's attack and couldn't afford to be distracted. He hurriedly took out a tortoiseshell from his ring hand and spat a mouthful of blood on it. Then the tortoiseshell quickly enlarged and formed a huge shield in front of him. Chi-chi, 2 soft sounds rang out and 2 extremely fine cracks appeared on the shield. Then Lin Jigui's expression froze. He looked down and saw that his skin and flesh had been torn open, and his internal organs had been shattered. Lin Jigui opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. Without the support of his spiritual energy, the surrounding lightning suddenly disappeared. His figure was instantly engulfed by the sky full of flowing light and terrifying dragon flames. Not even his bones remained. At the same time, the 3 leaders led by Hopu had surrounded and killed Li Liang. At this point, Li Zhangtao was the only dark lightning guard left. From the time Leng Shiqi attacked until now, only 3 or 4 breaths of time had passed. It could be said that they had killed the 2 great inspectors of the Dark Thunder Guards so quickly. Normally they wouldn't be so relaxed. This was due to Lin Jigui having consumed a large amount of spiritual energy. And it was also due to Li Zhangtao. After all, when he exploded the magical vortex, Lin Jigui was also injured. Li Zhangtao also saw that Leng Shiqi and the others had split up to kill Lin Jigui and Li Liang. He also wanted to help, but at this time, all the statues rushed towards him without fear of death. Even if he was at the unity of heaven and man realm, he couldn't rush out of the encirclement of more than 100 statues comparable to the spirit aperture realm. Seeing Lin Jigui and Li Liang killed, Li Zhangtao was furious. His expression was ferocious, and his eyes became incomparably red, like a hungry beast. He stared at Leng Shiqi with murderous intent and roared, "Lu Xingji, you dared to kill your comrades and set up a trap to harm me. When I get out, I will make you pay a heavy price." Leng Shiqi sneered and said, "Get out? I didn't expect Surly to be so naive. Do you think you still have a chance to get out?" Li Zhangtao's body trembled. When he saw the shocking murderous intent in Leng Shiqi's eyes, his heart thumped. Leng Shiqi wanted to kill him. Even though Li Zhangtao thought of it, he still didn't dare to believe it. Who was he? He was the trusted aide of the Dark Thunder Guard's chief steward Li, a direct descendant of the Li clan, the patrol inspector of the Dark Thunder Guard in Ningyan County, and a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. Any one of these identities was enough to shake a region, so when he knew that it was Leng Shiqi's trap, he didn't think that Leng Shiqi would kill him. In his mind, Leng Shiqi wanted nothing more than to get rid of all of his wings, destroy his foundation, and force him to hand over the patrol inspector position. But at this moment, Li Zhangtao finally understood. Leng Shiqi wanted to kill him. He dared to kill him. Leng Shiqi waved his hand and Feng Shamo and the others surrounded Li Zhangtao from all angles. A trace of fear suddenly appeared in Li Zhangtao's heart. Li Zhangtao was a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, but his cultivation was forcibly broken through with the help of external objects. His foundation was not as good as that of a spirit cultivator who broke through by himself, so it had been more than 10 years since he reached the unity of heaven and man realm, but he was still at the early stage of the unity of heaven and man realm. If nothing unexpected happened, he was afraid that he would stop here for the rest of his life. Before this he didn't care. The unity of heaven and man realm was already a strong expert, and he was also in charge of a large number of resources in Ningyan County. Even if he was old he would have no regrets. But now he regretted it. Who were the enemies in front of him? The 4 leaders of the Barren River tribe were all at the middle and late stage of the Gang Spirit realm, especially Hopu who was at the peak of the Gang Spirit realm. They had ancient secret skills and experienced countless battles. Even if it was a normal breakthrough of the unity of heaven and man realm, it would not be so easy to kill these 4 people. And Feng Shamo, who had just made a move, was so terrible that Li Zhangtao was not sure that he could block it. And Feng Shamo also had a 7th level precious weapon. Who was he? Of course the biggest threat was Leng Shiqi. Li Zhangtao had read the information about Leng Shiqi and knew the achievements of Leng Shiqi. When he was at the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm, he killed Wei Xiangming who was at the middle stage of the Gang Spirit realm. When he was at the half step of the Gang Spirit realm, he killed Elder Wan, who was at the late stage of the Gang Spirit realm of the Sky Crane Gang. Now Leng Shiqi was at the Gang Spirit realm, so how strong was his real strength? More importantly, the reason why the unity of heaven and man realm was far stronger than the Gang Spirit realm was that they could directly mobilize all kinds of spiritual power between heaven and earth. They had already touched a trace of the power of heaven and earth with their human bodies, which was the so-called unity of heaven and man realm. What Li Zhangtao practiced was cold qi, so he could directly extract the ice spiritual power between heaven and earth, which made him have the power of ice and snow with a wave of his hand. But now the whole secret space was almost filled with the golden earth dragon flame. Under the burning of the strange fire of heaven and earth, the ice spiritual power here was almost burned out. Li Zhangtao could not mobilize much ice spiritual power at all, which meant that he did not have much advantage except that his own spiritual power was more powerful. So when he was surrounded by the 6 people of Leng Shiqi, even if his cultivation was far higher than theirs and he had a trump card, he could not help but feel a little scared. He was afraid of death. Leng Shiqi keenly saw through Li Zhangtao's mind and sneered, "The inspector of Ningyan County, a master of the unity of heaven and man realm, is afraid? You are really a loser." Leng Shiqi hit the nail on the head, and Li Zhangtao was like a cat whose tail was guessed. He suddenly exploded, "Lu Xingji, even if I die today, I will drag you down with me. Only a loser would say such words, but you'd better deal with these things first." Leng Shiqi waved his hand, and the remaining hundreds of statues continued to rush to Li Zhangtao like moths to a flame. Chapter 594. Leng Shiqi also knew that the 6 people on his side were very strong, but he didn't dare to be careless. This was the first time he faced an expert in the Unity of Heaven realm. As long as you weren't in the Unity of Heaven realm, you would never know how terrifying this realm was. Moreover, Li Zhangtao had been in Ningyan County for a long time, so he must have a lot of trump cards. Rushing up rashly would give him an opportunity. Therefore, Leng Shiqi planned to make the best use of the statues to wear down Li Zhangtao's spirit energy. He also knew that Li Zhangtao used external objects to break through, so his spirit energy was definitely not very pure. If Li Zhangtao wanted to deal with these 100 statues, he would have to use a lot of spirit energy. This was a soft knife. Leng Shiqi also didn't plan to rely on the statues. His 4 limbs changed the spirit seals, and the 9 palace fire diagram that hadn't dissipated yet moved over. The surrounding air instantly became extremely explosive, and the rolling heat waves almost squeezed out all the ice spirit energy between heaven and earth, weakening Li Zhangtao's strength. The white light on Li Zhangtao's 10 directions floating snow spear dimmed a bit, and his face became even uglier. "That's a heavenly flame," he exclaimed. Leng Shiqi's information only said that he suspected to have a heavenly flame, but after seeing it with his own eyes, he couldn't help but be amazed. As soon as the heavenly flame appeared, the entire space was filled with fire spirit energy. Not only was Li Zhangtao unable to use his ice spirit energy, but his ice spirit techniques were also greatly reduced. What made Li Zhangtao even more resentful was that Leng Shiqi only controlled the 9 fire pillars to move left and right, but didn't take the initiative to attack. He still used the statues to besiege him. Li Zhangtao knew that if this continued, he would be tortured to death sooner or later, so he might as well fight. Then he quickly took out a white jade box. He opened it and a finger-length white silkworm was lying inside. As soon as the box was opened, a dense cold air was emitted from the ice silkworm, which could actually resist a portion of the pure gold earth dragon flames. Ho Pu's eyes widened and he said in surprise, "That's the immortal ice silkworm, a treasure for cultivators who cultivate ice spirit energy. It's comparable to an 8th-tier treasure." He wasn't wrong. This immortal frost ice silkworm was something that Li Zhangtao always carried with him for cultivation. However, at this moment he picked up the ice silkworm and swallowed it. Soon after, a layer of terrifying frost appeared on Li Zhangtao's face. However, his aura became even more berserk. Even the cold chi that was suppressed by the pure gold earth dragon flame was rebounded a little. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes. Li Zhangtao was using the immortal chilling ice silkworm as a means to continuously supply him with spiritual energy. This method would definitely harm the immortal chilling ice silkworm. It would also cause the spirit veins in Li Zhangtao's body to be filled with cold energy, ultimately causing them to freeze. This was undoubtedly killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. However, Li Zhangtao didn't care about this at all. He only wanted to kill. Leng Shiqi saw that the method of consuming spiritual power was not working. He moved his hands behind his back, and the 9 pillars of fire suddenly turned into dragons that roamed the sky. 9 dragons streaked across the sky, their might shaking the surroundings. Leng Shiqi's spiritual power surged and locked onto Li Zhangtao. Soon after, the 9 pure gold fire dragons flew down. The entire small space was filled with scorching dragon flames. Since he couldn't continue to exhaust his spiritual power, he could only attack head-on. He wanted to see if his pure gold earth dragon flame could suppress the immortal chilling ice silkworm. Feng Shamo and Ho Pu no longer held back. In the blink of an eye, 4 enormous war gods appeared. However, this time they didn't fight individually. Instead, they formed a simple formation. Although the formation was simple, it could completely gather the power of the 4 people. Looking up, 8 mountain-like fists smashed down one after another. Feng Shamo didn't move. If one looked closely, they would see that his eyes had turned pitch black. There was no other emotion in them, only one. That was hatred. The 9 dragons roared and the fist broke the river. Under such a terrifying attack, Li Zhangtao roared madly. 2 streams of blood flowed from the corners of his eyes. It was clear that he was forced into a dead end. Li Zhangtao raised his spear, and a violent spiritual power fluctuation spread out. Even the surrounding space was visibly distorted. The spear pierced out, and the ice river flowed to the east. The ice river reversed and collided with the fire dragon. The 2 opposing forces, ice and fire, fiercely collided, causing the small space to tremble. When Ho Pu and the others' fists landed, a demonic dagger appeared in Li Zhangtao's left hand. When the dagger slashed out, there wasn't any blade aura. Instead, there was a blurred light. Ho Pu and the others instantly fell into a boundless illusion. However, to Leng Shiqi this illusion technique was nothing at all. His main body made a strange hand seal, and a 9-colored spirit light suddenly erupted. There seemed to be a 9-colored vortex spinning in his eyes. Li Zhangtao's eyes also seemed to reflect a 9-colored light. Li Zhangtao's divine sense suddenly stagnated, and even the spiritual power in his body stopped circulating. Flowing light illusion technique. Fortunately, the dagger in his hand suddenly trembled violently, helping him break free from the illusion. However, in this moment of distraction, his ice river shattered, causing the fire dragon to wreak havoc, and it had already arrived. Li Zhangtao stretched out his hand, and a blurry figure suddenly appeared from the ring on his finger. The figure held a spirit sword, and its appearance was somewhat similar to Li Jueqing's. The illusory figure pointed the sword, and suddenly the space was destroyed. The flame dragon was torn apart, and the sword broke the fist aura. In fact, the illusory figure was their Li family's ancestor. Any family member who broke through to the unity of heaven and man realm would be qualified to receive this ring, which contained the will of the Li family's ancestor. Although it was just a will, it was comparable to the full-force attack of a mid-stage unity of heaven and man realm cultivator. Li Zhangtao finally resolved this wave, but before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Feng Shamo had already slashed out. His heaven-hating extreme wind blade had become incomparably dim. When he slashed out, there was no blade aura or blade light. Only a strange blade intent directly attacked Li Zhangtao's mind. Li Zhangtao had just barely broken free from the control of the flowing light illusion technique, and his mind was still unstable. Feng Shamo's blade intent broke into his mind without any obstruction. However, Li Zhangtao didn't feel any discomfort. He easily repelled Feng Shamo with the tip of his spear. He didn't understand the meaning behind Feng Shamo's actions. If Feng Shamo had used the same blade technique that killed Lin Jigui, then he would have been seriously injured at the very least. However, he didn't have time to think about it because the others had already attacked. Especially Leng Shiqi, who condensed a dazzling black and white brilliance on his left and right. The holy radiance and dark demonic power didn't repel each other, but instead merged together. Leng Shiqi raised his arms high, and the black and white streams of light rushed into the sky. They intertwined with each other and condensed into a black and white dragon. The dragon was about 50 to 60 feet long. As soon as it appeared, it soared into the sky. The power of yin and yang destruction on its body directly caused the 5 elements in the space to become chaotic. Yin and yang were reversed, and the spiritual power of heaven and earth was pushed out. Void Swimming Dragon. Chapter 595. Li Zhangtao, Hopper, and the others were shocked to find that they couldn't use Spiritual Highland, and Li Zhangtao was completely unable to communicate with the ice spiritual power between heaven and earth. His pupils suddenly shrank. At that moment he seemed to see the figure of the Grim Reaper. However, he didn't give up. Instead, he took out several strange-looking things. These were all life-saving trump cards that he had accumulated over the years. The Yin-Yang dragon attacked directly. Yin and Yang intertwined, and its power was unparalleled. Li Zhangtao patted a doll in his hand. Immediately, the doll continued to grow, and it turned into a huge puppet that was more than 100 feet tall. He tore 2 pieces of spiritual paper in succession. Then, a curtain of water and a mountain peak appeared in front of him. He crushed a scarlet heart that was still beating. As blood filled the air, a demon that seemed to have crawled out of the netherworld was faintly discernible. Li Zhangtao actually had so many trump cards. As the Yin-Yang dragon roared, the puppet was instantly crushed into powder. Waves of terrifying destructive power stirred up the water curtain, splitting mountains and rivers. In the end, the demon didn't even have the chance to fully reveal its body before it was directly turned into dust by the extreme yang power. However, these trump cards also bought Li Zhangtao some time. He directly burned his essence blood, turned into a ray of blood light and rushed to the entrance. Unfortunately, at that moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Do you hate? You hate the heavens for being unfair. You hate Lu Xingji for plotting to kill you. You hate Lin Jigui for being greedy and causing you to be in danger. You hate Eunuch Gao for wanting to take away your power. That voice was like a curse that kept reverberating in his mind, and every word it said hit his soul directly. Yes, he hated it. Of course he hated it. He couldn't wait to kill Leng Shiqi and even Eunuch Gao. Li Zhangtao's footsteps suddenly stopped. His face was full of crazy hatred, but his eyes were strangely black. Leng Shiqi knew that this was Feng Shemo's move. He couldn't miss this good opportunity. Holding the demon arrival battle saber, he immediately slashed out a shocking saber light. In an instant, time and space seemed to be stagnant. The entire starlight space suddenly dimmed, as if there were only two colors left between heaven and earth. Everyone's movements seemed to slow down, especially Li Jiangtao. The expression on his face was extremely ferocious. His eyes were motionless as if they were frozen. But at that moment there was a crack sound in the space, and Li Jiangtao's body shattered like a mirror. At the same time, a saber light to tear through his mental defense and directly cut off his consciousness. Divine ephemeral flash. Lung Shiqi's gang qi, blood qi, evil qi, devil qi, demon qi, evil qi, and even his killing intent and will had all been infused into it. When everything returned, everything to Li's and Li's his Li, as to his. Lung Shiqi had already lost all his buffs. His face was as pale as paper and countless fine cracks appeared on his body. Blood seeped out and dyed him red. Maintaining the wild evil demon blood beast body for a long time was already a huge burden. Moreover, this was the first time he had used the great void swimming dragon and divine ephemeral flash at the same time. All the strength in his body was almost exhausted, and even his spiritual meridians were beginning to shrink. He swallowed a few pills and absorbed a wisp of Li Jiangtao's remnant soul. Only then did his face become a little rosy. At that moment, the demon arrival battle saber in his hand suddenly let out a loud buzzing sound. Strangely, the demon arrival battle saber absorbed all the remaining blood of Li Jiangtao. The demon arrival saber trembled violently in Lung Shiqi's hand. The demon arrival battle saber soon calmed down, but there was a thin line of blood on the saber's body. Feng Shammo was attracted by the movement. Seeing the abnormality of the demon arrival battle saber, he said in surprise, "This saber is quite extraordinary. It has the potential to be promoted to a 7th level precious weapon." He had a 7th level heaven-hating saber, so he had the right to speak. Of course, what surprised him the most was Lung Shiqi's strength. When he was in Shantai Prefecture, Feng Shammo also saw Lung Shiqi activate the wild evil demon blood beast body and use the great void swimming dragon to kill Elder One. But at that time, Lung Shiqi was only a half-step to Gang Spirit Realm, and Feng Shammo also thought that he could kill Elder One, so he regarded Lung Shiqi as an equal. But in today's battle, he clearly saw that Lung Shiqi's strength had made a qualitative leap. Whether it was the 9 Palaces Fire Formation, the Great Void Swimming Dragon, or Divine Ephemeral Flash, they were all much more powerful than when he was a half-step to Gang Spirit Realm. Feng Shammo had realized that Lung Shiqi's strength seemed to have surpassed his. It could be said that he had witnessed Lung Shiqi's growth from the Spirit Transformation Realm to the present. The speed of Lung Shiqi's progress made him very frightened. Feng Shammo found it a little hard to accept. The feeling of being surpassed by a junior step by step was really uncomfortable. The key was that Feng Shammo was arrogant and proud. In the face of Lung Shiqi's strong rise, he couldn't help but have a strong desire to win. But he didn't want to suppress Lung Shiqi. Instead, he wanted to continue to leave Lung Shiqi behind with his own strength. Hopu and the others stood there in a daze after Li Jiangtao's death and didn't come to their senses until now. Hopu walked quickly to Li Jiangtao's shriveled body with an incredulous expression on his face. Li Jiangtao, the inspector of Ningyang County and a grandmaster in the oneness of heaven and men realm, died like this? He died at their hands. Ever since Li Jiangtao became the inspector of Ningyang County, he had angered everyone. Forces like the Baranchuan tribe were the most difficult to deal with, and they had been oppressed by Li Jiangtao over the years. Now that the culprit had died at their hands, Hopu felt like he was dreaming. Lung Shiqi walked to his side and said, "We were able to kill Li Jiangtao this time thanks to leader Hopu and the other 3 leaders. Don't worry, this matter won't involve the Baranchuan tribe." Li Jiangtao, the inspector of the Dark Thunder Guards, the 2 inspectors and many Dark Thunder envoys had died at the Star Point mine. If this matter was exposed, the Baranchuan tribe would definitely suffer the wrath of the Thunderfire dynasty. However, Lung Shiqi was already prepared. Hopu nodded and said, "I believe in Mr. Lu's ability, but can I know Mr. Lu's true identity now?" In fact, during the battle, Li Jiangtao had called out Lung Shiqi's alias, so his identity was definitely not simple. "Well, Leader Hopu should know. If nothing unexpected happens, you will know my identity in a few days." While they were talking, the space suddenly shook a few times, and the space in the sky was distorted. Lung Shiqi's expression changed and he shouted, "Oh no, the formation is about to collapse. We have to leave here quickly." Chapter 596. The distance between the Star Point Lode and the Dark Thunder Mansion of Ningyan County was neither far nor close. It would take 4 or 5 days to go back and forth. At this time, the other 2 supervisors were still drinking in the Dark Thunder Mansion, preparing to welcome Li Zhangtao back. But they didn't expect that it was Leng Shiqi who came. Boom! With a loud noise, the gate of the Dark Thunder Mansion was directly smashed. Leng Shiqi, Feng Shamo and Su Wan strode into the Dark Thunder Mansion. Such a big movement naturally attracted many Dark Thunder guards. But when they all saw Leng Shiqi dressed as an eunuch, they all hid far away and dared not to question him. The 2 supervisors heard the noise and came. At first they were gloomy, but when they saw Leng Shiqi they were surprised. They looked at each other and secretly transmitted a message. He is Lu Xingji. Why did he suddenly show up? He doesn't come with good intentions. Maybe he dares to make trouble when Lord Li is not here. Let's not show any flaws and just send him away. They cupped their hands and said at the same time, Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing pay our respects to Lord Eunuch. However, Leng Shiqi didn't say anything. Instead, he raised his hand and threw a bloody thing to them. The object fell to the ground with a thud, and a foul stench assaulted their nostrils. Luo Hua, Xiang Zhiqing and Ding Yan were horrified when they saw it. The object on the ground was half of Li Zhangtao's head. Lord Li. Luo Hua was so scared that his eyes were about to pop out. Didn't Li Zhangtao go to the Star Point Lode to get the secret treasure? How could he die? And he died in the hands of Leng Shiqi? Xiang Zhiqing pointed at Leng Shiqi, but his fingers were trembling slightly. He trembled and said, You. He opened his mouth for a long time, but he couldn't even finish a sentence. As a master of Gang Spirit Realm, he lost his composure like this. It could be imagined that they were really scared out of their wits at the moment. Leng Shiqi threw out a pile of things. There were accounts, evidence, confessions and so on. These were all evidence of Li Zhangtao's crimes. During this period of time, Su Wan had not shown herself. She had been gathering evidence. When Li Zhangtao first came to Ningyan County 2 years ago, he did some cover-up. However, later on he became more and more brazen. Therefore, this evidence was very easy to collect. Leng Shiqi then took out the investigation document given to him by Eunuch Gao and shouted, Li Zhangtao is audacious. He used his position as an inspector to seek benefits, ignored the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards, and made the entire Ningyan County a mess. I was ordered by Steward Gao to investigate Ningyan County. Li Zhangtao had committed a heinous crime and deserved to die. Now that I'm going to take over Dark Thunder Manor temporarily, why aren't you kneeling? Leng Shiqi's words were powerful and resonated throughout Dark Thunder Manor like thunder. Everyone who heard these words knelt on the ground, their bodies trembling slightly. Only Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing did not kneel because they were still in a daze. Li Zhangtao was an expert in the unity of heaven and man realm. He did not go to the star mineral vein alone. He also brought Lin Jigui and Li Liang, 2 experts in the Gang Spirit realm, several experts in the Spirit Aperture realm, and dozens of Dark Thunder Guards in the Spiritual Pulse realm. These people alone were enough to easily destroy an ordinary second-rate sect. However, these people, including Li Zhangtao, were all dead. How was this possible? Seeing that the 2 of them did not kneel, Leng Shiqi snorted coldly. In an instant, the sky was covered with dark clouds and thunder burst out. A rolling thunder cloud appeared. Leng Shiqi pressed one hand and the thunder cloud stirred. Immediately, a giant hand reached out from the thunder cloud. Lightning flashed and suppressed everything. Purple lightning hand. Only then did Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing come to their senses. They did not expect Leng Shiqi to suddenly make a move. The giant hand in the air did not fall quickly, but there was a strong suppressive force, which made them feel like Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Different spiritual highlands flashed around the 2 of them, while Leng Shiqi's left hand quietly formed a seal. Strands of 9-colored light flowed continuously. He suddenly shouted, How dare you resist? Kneel down. Kneel down. Kneel down. Kneel down. These words kept echoing in the sky. Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing's minds were like being struck by lightning. There was a brief moment of absent-mindedness, and the gang spirit they just condensed dissipated. The purple extreme lightning hand descended, slapping viciously onto the 2 people's bodies. Bang bang. A series of explosions rang out and the courtyard of Dark Thunder Manor was thrown into the air. The ground quaked and Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing were pressed to the ground, their bodies sinking deep into the ground. And there was a palm print of more than 100 feet on the ground. At this time the 2 of them were kneeling on the ground. Their faces were covered with blood, and their eyes were full of trance. They had been hit by Leng Shiqi. Since when was the early stage of Gang Spirit Realm so terrifying? A large number of people who had knelt down long ago were so scared that they did not even dare to breathe. Especially when they saw Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing being subdued by the giant hand, there was only endless fear for Leng Shiqi in their hearts. It was the first time for them to see Leng Shiqi, but they all felt that he was more terrifying than Li Zhangtao. Leng Shiqi walked to the side of the big pit, looked down at the two of them and said coldly, "Considering that you two are only accomplices, I will spare your lives for the time being. Next, complete the transfer of power as soon as possible and transfer all the Dark Thunder Guards in Ningyan County here." Xiang Zhiqing spat out a mouthful of blood, but he endured the injury in his body and reluctantly made a fist and palm salute, saying, I accept your order." After that, he stood up shakily and went to do his job. Luo's cultivation was only at the early stage of Gang Spirit Realm. Under the crushing of Leng Shiqi's purple pole Thunderlight hand, his body had been badly damaged. Although he still had a few breaths, he had no strength to move. It was even difficult for him to open his mouth and speak. Leng Shiqi spat out these two words softly. With a wave of his hand, the violent Gang Qi of thunder fell down and directly blew up Luo's head. Xiang Zhiqing, who had just walked a few steps, suddenly stopped and then left at a faster speed. Leng Shiqi leisurely walked to the throne in the assembly hall, picked up the jade rui that was placed at the side, and lay back leisurely, waiting for the group of people to do their work. At this time Feng Shamo said, "What do you think? Isn't it easy to deal with the problem in this way?" In fact, before coming here, Leng Shiqi intended to force them to submit the evidence. If Luo Hua and Xiang Zhiqing still did not surrender, he would take action. However, Feng Shamo said that he could completely suppress them with force, which would be the most efficient way. Sure enough, he killed Luo Hua in a thunderous manner, subdued Xiang Zhiqing and all the Dark Thunder Guards, and took over the Dark Thunder Mansion in a short time. It was surprisingly smooth. Of course, the premise of all this was that Leng Shiqi was strong enough. Chapter 597. Not long after, Xiang Zhiqing brought over the inspector's seal and all the accounts of the Dark Thunder Manor. Leng Shiqi was secretly shocked when he casually flipped through them. Li Zhangtao was really a local tyrant in Ningyan County. The resources that he had plundered over the years were simply too many to count. No wonder eunuch Gao had always coveted Ningyan County. This was simply a money tree. Leng Shiqi then took out Li Zhangtao's mustard seed bracelet. Ever since he killed Li Zhangtao, he had rushed to Dark Thunder Manor without stopping to rest. He did not have the time to check Li Zhangtao's own resources. He used his mental power to check and was immediately amazed. First of all, the space in Li Zhangtao's mustard bracelet was several times larger than Leng Shiqi's, and it was actually filled with all kinds of rare resources. There were 30 to 40,000 spiritual stones alone. These were not ordinary spiritual stones, but all of them were mid-grade spiritual stones. If converted, it was definitely equivalent to more than 4 million ordinary spiritual stones. A mere inspector's mustard bracelet had such a terrifying amount of spiritual stones. Moreover, Li Zhangtao definitely had his own private stash. Who knew how much he had embezzled over the years? Leng Shiqi once again sighed that this local tyrant was much better off than the deputy general manager of the Dark Thunder Manor. He then took out his own mustard bracelet. There were also many resources in it. Some of them were taken from the Dark Thunder Manor in Shantai County, and some were resources from the Wasteland tribe. There were also more than 1 million spiritual stones in it. Now, Leng Shiqi had more than 5 million spiritual stones in his wallet. This made him feel like a nouveau riche. Thinking back to the auction held by Celestial Treasure Firm some time ago, he had sold everything he had and cheated for 300,000 spiritual stones. Now that he suddenly had a huge amount of spiritual stones, he unconsciously straightened his back. Leng Shiqi then continued to check the other resources. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. There were all kinds of high-grade materials, elixirs and spiritual tools. The worst was of the 5th grade. He even found a lot of 7th grade resources. Among them, the most precious were the 4 celestial elixirs. These were the elixirs that the unity of heaven and man experts needed the most. If the heavenly dipper pellet was priceless, then the celestial pellet was something that could only be found by chance. Those who could refine the celestial pellet were known as alchemy grandmasters. In the entire Starfall continent, the number of alchemy grandmasters could be counted on 2 hands. Therefore, in order to obtain a celestial pill, one's cultivation level, identity, resources, and even luck were all indispensable. However, Li Zhangtao was actually able to get 4 celestial pellets. It could be seen that he really had the power to call the wind and summon the rain in Ningyan County. In addition to the celestial pellet, there were also two 7th level precious weapons. One of them was the 10 directions fluttering snow spear. As for the other one, it was more special. It was actually a bow and arrow. The bow had a peculiar design. It was purple-pink in color and had a slender and elegant bow. Layers of lotus flower petals were engraved on it. It looked as if there was a spirit fox lying on top of it. It was warm and comfortable to hold in one's hand. At the bottom of the bow, there were a few small words engraved on it. Spirit Fox Lotus Bow. After receiving the bow and arrow, Lung Shiqi immediately felt that there seemed to be a faint consciousness floating within it. It seemed to be full of spirituality. However, he frowned because this bow and arrow seemed to be more suitable for women. In addition, he did not have any archery skills. Not only him, but it seemed that there were very few spirit cultivators on the continent who practiced archery. In his impression, the most famous sect on the continent for their archery skills was the Flying Leaf Valley of the 8 Wastelands Path of War. This top sect specialized in archery. Every disciple of the Flying Leaf Valley was known as a godly archer. At the peak of their glory, the Flying Leaf Valley was ranked among the 5 sections. Even if it was not as good as before, it was still a top sect. It was rumored that the Sky Origin Stage cultivators of the Flying Leaf Valley could take a person's head from 1,000 miles away. It was a pity that Lung Shiqi did not have any archery skills that he could use right now. Therefore, this Spirit Fox Lotus Bow seemed a little useless. However, it was still a 7th level artifact after all. Lung Shiqi naturally stored it in the system space. Moreover, even if he did not have any archery skills now, it did not mean that he would not have any in the future. In addition to these few most precious resources, the most coveted thing was the small pile of 7th level materials. These were all necessary materials for refining 7th level spirit tools or medicinal pills. No matter where they were placed, they would definitely be sought after goods. Unfortunately, these things were temporarily useless to Lung Shiqi, so he could only keep them for now. What was worth mentioning was that after Lung Shiqi flipped through the pile, he actually found a letter. This letter was written by a weapon refining grandmaster named Meng Jingyi of the Shinduan Mountain. Lung Shiqi carefully read it for a while. It turned out that a few years ago, Meng Jingyi was assassinated on his way back to the Divine Tempering Peak. It was Li Zhangtao who saved him. In order to repay his kindness, Meng Jingyi specially made a 7th level artifact for Li Zhangtao, which was the 10 Directions Floating Snow Spear. Meng Jingyi also promised Li Zhangtao that he could do something for him. As long as Li Zhangtao needed it, he could take this letter directly to the Divine Tempering Peak. Lung Shiqi sneered in his heart. How could Li Zhangtao so easily save someone? Moreover, he often stayed in the Dark Thunder Manor to strategize. How could he have coincidentally encountered Meng Jingyi's assassination attempt? In Lung Shiqi's opinion, all of this could have been set up by Li Zhangtao on purpose. He wanted to lure Meng Jingyi, a weapon refining grandmaster, into a trap and refine an artifact for him. However, Lung Shiqi could not confirm whether or not this was the case. But it did not matter. Now that this letter was in his hands, Meng Jingyi's favor was now his. It just so happened that Feng Shamo also said that his demon arrival battle saber had the potential to evolve into an artifact. Perhaps he could ask Meng Jingyi to refine the demon arrival battle saber to the 7th level. Looks like I need to make a trip to the Divine Tempering Peak. He secretly made up his mind. Then he continued to look through the resources. What surprised him was that Li Zhangtao's resources included many 4th and 5th level cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. There were dozens of them altogether. Although Lung Shiqi mainly used 6th level spiritual techniques in battle, it was not bad to have so many spiritual techniques in one go. Not only did it make him more agile in battle, but it also increased the possibility of him fusing spiritual techniques. Unfortunately, Lung Shiqi did not find any 6th level spiritual techniques. Perhaps Li Zhangtao thought that 6th level cultivation methods and spiritual techniques were too precious to carry around, so he left them in the treasury. Thinking of the treasury, Lung Shiqi's eyes lit up. He immediately sent someone to call for Xiang Zhiqing. Xiang Zhiqing still dragged his heavily injured body in. He bowed and said, "Lord Lu, what orders do you have for me?" Lung Shiqi did not hesitate. He directly said, "Go and open the treasury." However, Xiang Zhiqing looked troubled. "Lord Lu, the treasury has been set up with layers of formations. Only Lord Li can open it. If you forcefully break the formations, the entire treasury will turn to ashes." Lung Shiqi immediately frowned. He had not thought of this. He could only report this to Eunuch Gao. While he sent people to take over Dark Thunder Manor in Ningyan County, He also needed a few formation masters. Chapter 598. Since the treasury could not be opened, Leng Shiqi was a little disappointed. Li Zhangtao's mustard seed bracelet contained such a huge amount of resources, so there must be even more resources in the treasury. He waved his hand and motioned for Xiang Zhiqing to leave. He first used the sound transmission array here to report the information to Eunuch Gao, then found a secret room and sat down cross-legged. Leng Shiqi was still sorting out his various resources. He divided all the resources into two categories. The first category was those that he could use, so these took up the majority. There was also a small portion of resources that he definitely could not use. He directly sold all these resources to the system, and his system coins instantly soared to more than 40,000. Leng Shiqi had never had so many system coins since he got the system. Perhaps all the system coins he had before did not even add up to more than 40,000. This made him realize the importance of strength and identity. Since he had more than 40,000 system coins, of course he had to convert these system coins into strength. He made a simple plan and planned to do 10 advanced lottery draws and 10 unlimited lottery draws. The advanced lottery draws could only draw level 5 or level 6 resources. Although Leng Shiqi did not lack them now, the system would draw things from other worlds, so he was somewhat looking forward to it. The unlimited lottery draws and the advanced lottery draws both cost 1,000 system coins, but the upper limit of the unlimited lottery draws was very high. Anyway, he was rich now, so he could take the risk. As for the remaining 20,000 system coins, Leng Shiqi planned to cultivate the Gu King and the four-legged metal-swallowing beast first, and then save some system coins for later use. After making the plan, Leng Shiqi immediately opened the lottery draw page. In order to calm himself down, he first selected the advanced lottery draw option and pressed it 10 times in a row. Then, a pair of strange things appeared in front of him, and at the same time, a system notification came. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, immunity to poison. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, advanced challenge card. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, clavicle hook. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, level 6 spiritual technique, dual flying fire. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, drunken dream. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a high-grade reward, 5th order quality and 60 years of power. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the high-grade prize, Phoenix Flying Parasol Tree. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Ethereal Chessboard. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Xiao Yun Poison Needle. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a high-grade reward, Rank 5 Cultivation Method Wild Sand Skill. Leng Shiqi began to check the prizes one by one. First of all, poison immunity was a talent that made him immune to poison. However, in Leng Shiqi's eyes, it was a little useless because his physical strength was very strong. Moreover, he also had some goo worms in his body, so ordinary poisons were useless against him. Then he picked up a light purple card in front of him. This was the advanced challenge card. The spirit energy in his body circulated gently, and the challenge card immediately turned into a line of words. Challenge mission: kill a spirit cultivator of the Unity of Heaven realm. Reward: 1 top-level lucky draw. Seeing this challenge mission, Leng Shiqi almost swore. If he had gotten this challenge card a few days earlier, he could have completed it directly. Now he had to kill a master of the Unity of Heaven realm. Where could he kill him? One had to know that the reason why Leng Shiqi could kill Li Zhangtao was due to many factors. First of all, Li Zhangtao was at the bottom of the Unity of Heaven realm. Even if he had the 10 directions fluttering snow spear, he could not exert the real strength of the Unity of Heaven realm. Secondly, Li Zhangtao broke the gate under the star mineral vein and fought with the statue for a while, which consumed a lot of spirit energy. In this case, the sneak attack by Leng Shiqi and the other 6 gang spirit realm experts was still resolved. Later, all of them used up their trump cards to kill him. It could be seen that the Unity of Heaven realm was really terrifying. Now he had got a challenge card and had to kill a master of the Unity of Heaven realm, which gave Leng Shiqi a headache. Fortunately, there was no time limit for this challenge mission. He could do it when he was stronger. Leng Shiqi continued to look at the prizes and picked up a strange-shaped weapon from the ground, the clavicle hook. The front of the clavicle hook was an extremely curved hook with a very sharp tip, and there were strange thin grooves on it. There was a long chain behind it, which made him feel like a messenger of hell when he held it in his hand. The grade of this item wasn't low, it was at least level 6, but Leng Shiqi couldn't use it. Generally speaking, the more unpopular the weapon was, the more miraculous it was. But at the same time, it needed a matching cultivation method and spiritual skill to use it freely. Therefore he could only keep it for now. Putting away the clavicle hook, Leng Shiqi looked at the next prize, the 6th level spiritual skill. Double Flying Fire. Leng Shiqi had no impression of this spiritual skill and did not know which world it came from. But what made his eyes light up was that it was an archery spiritual skill. This was an extremely difficult archery technique, which required 2 arrows to be shot at the same time. In fact, there were many people who could do this and even shoot more arrows at the same time. But don't forget, this was a 6th level spiritual skill, not a casual archery skill. Therefore, the person who cultivated this spiritual skill had to have extremely strong control. Leng Shiqi, on the other hand, was able to ignore this restriction. He was pleasantly surprised as he directly cultivated the dual flying fire to the great perfection. He then took out the Spirit Fox Lotus Bow. He wondered how terrifying the power of a 7th rank bow and arrow, coupled with the dual flying fire at the great perfection, would be if he added the pure gold earth dragon flame. He could not wait to find someone to shoot at. Of course, he stopped thinking about this and continued to look at the prizes. He picked up a large jar of wine next to him, and the words "Drunken Dream" were written on it. So Drunken Dream was a jar of wine. How could a jar of wine be worthy of a high-grade prize? Leng Shiqi held a skeptical attitude as he gently lifted a corner of the wine jar. Immediately after, an indescribable wine fragrance assaulted his face. He had only inhaled a trace of it, but he instantly felt his entire body go soft and light. Leng Shiqi's primordial spirit trembled, and a pure spiritual force surged out, waking him up in an instant. At the same time, it also surprised him. He only smelled it once and it made him feel drunk. If someone really drank it, wouldn't they be drunk to death? Although Drunken Dream was not a precious resource and could not increase one's combat strength, if he met someone who liked wine, then the value of Drunken Dream would be even more precious than a 7th level treasure weapon. Leng Shiqi quickly covered the wine jar. He could not use this thing for the time being, but it did not mean that he could not use it in the future. Who knows, it might have other uses. He then stretched out his hand and attracted a small ball of spiritual energy floating in the air. This was 60 years of power. However, according to the prompt of the system, this was only equivalent to 60 years of power of a spirit cultivator who practiced a 5th level cultivation method. Leng Shiqi did not know how much power this ball of spiritual energy contained. Since it was so, he would find out after giving it a try. He opened his mouth and swallowed this ball of spiritual energy, and then a majestic and pure spiritual force sank into his star sea. At the same time, a 4th level chaotic star and 7 3rd level stars were floating in his spiritual star sea. This was the result of his 2-month closed-door training. But at this moment, starlight suddenly flashed, and a 3rd level star was formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. And 3 stars were condensed in succession. The spiritual star sea suddenly trembled slightly, and 10 3rd level stars attracted each other and merged into the 2nd 4th level chaotic star. Leng Shiqi's cultivation also broke through to the 2nd level of Gang Spirit Realm in an instant. At this moment, the spirit chi finally gradually weakened. However, even so, it still helped Leng Shiqi condense another 4 rank 3 stars. Leng Shiqi roughly calculated that 60 years of power of the 5th level cultivation method was equivalent to condensing 7 3rd level stars. It could be seen that the 5th level cultivation method was really different from the supreme cultivation method of the heavenly star technique. It was no wonder that many people could set off a bloody storm for a high-level cultivation method. After breaking through to the Gang Spirit Realm, Leng Shiqi also found that his cultivation speed was extremely slow. Even if he took the Heaven Gang Elixir, refined the Soul Stone, and used the Yin and Yang Spirit Gathering formation, his progress was still as slow as a turtle's. It was not that his aptitude was poor, nor that he had too few resources. It was precisely because he practiced the supreme cultivation method of the Heavenly Star technique. If he wanted to break through a small realm, the amount of spiritual force he needed to absorb and the effort he put in was also doubled. As for the remaining 4 prizes, except for the Shuyun Flying Needle, which was a good hidden weapon, the others were very ordinary and did not need to be mentioned. After sorting out all the prizes, Leng Shiqi clicked on the infinite lottery page again. 10 times. Chapter 599. With a flash of light, Leng Shiqi's prize was quickly drawn. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the beginner prize, Beginner Strengthening Talisman. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the beginner prize, Heavy Strike. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Level 5 Spiritual Technique, Drunken 8 Immortal Staff Technique. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the intermediate prize, Basic Alchemy. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the beginner prize, Fine Dagger. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the beginner prize, Fragrant Handkerchief. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Granite Shield. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the intermediate prize, Skeleton Summon. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the intermediate prize, Level 4 Spiritual Weapon, Realgar Dual Blades. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Level 6 Spiritual Technique, Sword Fury Flower. Seeing the results of the 10 infinite draws, Leng Shiqi only had one word left in his mind, and that was a loss. A huge loss. Apart from the 3 high-grade prizes, the rest of the prizes were all repulsive and unsightly. It could be said that he had lost a total of 7,000 system coins. Even though he was rich now, losing 7,000 system coins still made his heart ache. Moreover, among the 3 advanced prizes, there was a level 5 spiritual technique, Drunken 8 Immortal Staff Technique. Leng Shiqi had a vague impression of it. It seemed to be one of Shaolin's 72 ultimate techniques, just like the complete divine light. However, the Drunken 8 Immortal Staff Technique was very unpopular. In order to fully utilize the power of the staff technique, one had to be half drunk and half awake. However, everyone knew that monks did not drink alcohol, so this spiritual technique was very unpopular. However, he thought of the drunken dream that he had just drawn. If he drank a little wine and used the Drunken 8 Immortal Staff Technique, it might have some effect. It was a pity that this spiritual technique was only level 5. For the current Leng Shiqi, it was still a little low. The other level 6 spiritual skill, Sword Fury Wildflowers, was to Leng Shiqi's liking. This was a skill that came from a game world. When this spiritual skill was cultivated to perfection, the surging sword chi was like a blooming flower, layer upon layer. Not only was its power astonishing, but it was also very compatible with the mesmerizing chaotic flowers. Chaotic Blossom's gradually dazzling eyes was Leng Shiqi's first ultimate move. As his strength continued to increase, he also continued to strengthen this move. For example, he had fused the Star Extinction Sword Chi into it some time ago. He had originally planned to fuse the 5 Gods Illusion technique, but he had yet to succeed. Now that he had the addition of the Sword Fury Wildflower, he believed that if he could integrate all of these into it, the power of the chaotic flower's mesmerizing eyes would definitely increase explosively. As for the last advanced prize, Granite Shield, it was also from a game world. It was a passive skill of the Lava Behemoth. Leng Shiqi had also drawn a passive skill, which was Hell's Curse. So far, the Curse of Hell had increased his mental strength and physical strength by a lot, and he guessed that the souls in the Mansion of the Dead might have something to do with this passive skill. Therefore, even though it was a passive skill, it still had a miraculous effect. This passive skill could provide Leng Shiqi with a layer of shield. As for the thickness of the shield, it was related to his physical strength. The higher his physical strength, the stronger the shield. Leng Shiqi immediately learned this skill. Because it was a passive skill, there were no levels. He also knew the specific value of this skill. The Granite Shield could provide him with a close-fitting armor that was equivalent to 50% of his physical defense. This meant that when Leng Shiqi received damage, he had to first shatter the Granite Shield before he could truly damage his body. This value was somewhat different from the game. Leng Shiqi remembered that it increased health, but it was indeed difficult to calculate health in this world. Leng Shiqi then noticed that there was indeed a very thin layer of armor on the surface of his body. It was transparent and it looked no different from how he usually looked. Leng Shiqi clenched his fists and found that the Granite Shield did not affect his movements. He was very satisfied. This was equivalent to adding a layer of protection. If he was ambushed by others, this Granite Shield would play a very important role. After looking at all the prizes, if Leng Shiqi had to give a comment, it would be to protect his property and stay away from the lucky draw. He had spent a total of 20,000 system coins, but the result was that the prizes he received were far from worth the price. Even if it was 10 advanced lucky draws, half of them were useless. In total, he had basically lost half of his extravagant 20 consecutive draws this time. Looking at the remaining 20,000 system coins, Leng Shiqi secretly made up his mind. Before a new lucky draw option appeared, he would never draw again. Instead of using the system coins to gamble on luck, it was better to do something more practical, such as raising a pet. He immediately opened the pet space and checked that the Gu King's advancement had reached 88%. After a rough calculation, it would be successful in about half a month. However, now that Leng Shiqi had money, he wanted to try the effect of the advancement pill. He spent 2,000 system coins from the pet store to buy an intermediate advancement pill and gave it to the Gu King. The Gu King's body began to flicker with a faint 5-colored light, and its body slowly floated up. If one looked carefully, one would find that a pair of small wings had grown out of its back. After a few breaths, the 5-colored light suddenly flashed, and the Gu King flew out of the pet space. It flew around Leng Shiqi a few times and finally fell on his hand. The Gu King was now a rank 5 monster. It was comparable to a master of Gang Spirit Realm. However, the Gu King was not a combat monster. It did not have strong combat power, but more of a support ability. Leng Shiqi used the system to check the Gu King's information and found that in addition to the armor form, soul devouring, and flying abilities, there were 2 more abilities. One was Poison Curse. This Gu King was created by Princess Carol by refining countless Gu worms. It was very poisonous to begin with, and it was a mixture of many different kinds of toxins. However, Leng Shiqi used the Gu King more as an armor form in the past, so he had hardly used it in this aspect. After the armor form, Leng Shiqi could use the Poison Curse. The usage of the Poison Curse was very flexible. It could be planted in a person's body to make them suffer, or it could release poisonous fog and clouds to restrict the enemy. It was a good ability. But to say that he was strong, he wasn't that strong. Because Leng Shiqi's opponents were basically masters of Gang Spirit Realm. With the protection of Gang Spirit, the effect of poison was reduced a lot. The other ability was that it had a strong concealment skill. If Leng Shiqi did not use the Byakugan, he would not be able to find the Gu King's trace. With this ability and the Gu King's intelligence, it would be very convenient for him to gather information in the future. Of course, Leng Shiqi was more concerned about the increase in strength and various strange abilities brought by the Gu King's armor form. Then he bought a few more pet experience pills and fed them to the Gu King. Then he put it back into the pet space and summoned the 4-legged gold-swallowing beast. Chapter 600. A pink and tender little pig jumped into Leng Shiqi's arms, its little head bobbing up and down a few times. Leng Shiqi opened its mouth and stuffed a few beginner pet experience pills into its mouth. The 4-legged metal-swallowing beast was stunned for a moment, then its whole body flashed and its body became fatter. It had evolved into a rank 2 monster. Leng Shiqi quickly checked the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast's information. However, other than the range of detection being a little larger, there were no new abilities. Leng Shiqi fell into silence. It seemed that the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast had no other abilities other than treasure hunting. Treasure hunting was good, but the problem was that Leng Shiqi had no time to do it. If he was a free individual cultivator, of course he could take his time and explore the world while looking for treasures. How wonderful would that be? However, he was in a high position now. Of course there were many benefits, but he did not have much freedom. Leng Shiqi did not give up on the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast. He bought some beginner-strengthening pills from the pet store and planned to strengthen it to see if it could be saved. In the pet strengthening interface, the attributes that could be strengthened were strength, vitality, intelligence, and agility. The beginner-strengthening pill could only strengthen one of them slightly. Leng Shiqi looked at the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast's silly and cute appearance. It was impossible to rely on it to fight. He planned to increase the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast's intelligence first, but he did not know whether this intelligence corresponded to spirit power or intelligence. Then he used all 5 beginner-strengthening pills on intelligence. He picked up the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast and looked at it twice, but he did not find any changes. There were only 2 reasons for this situation. Either the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast's intelligence was very high, so the 5 beginner-strengthening pills did not have much effect. Or its intelligence was too low. Leng Shiqi frowned. He realized that if he did not spend more system coins on the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast, he could not expect anything from it. Then he simply bought a lot of experience pills, strengthening pills, and advanced pills from the pet store. It cost him more than 10,000 system coins. Leng Shiqi first fed the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast a large amount of experience pills and strengthening pills. When it was about to evolve, he fed it advancement pills. The 4-legged metal-swallowing beast was also evolving at an incredible speed. After a short while, the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast had already become a rank 4 monster. The rank 4 four-legged metal devourer beast's body did not grow much bigger. Its ability was still limited to finding treasures. Its range had increased to tens of miles and it could sense rank 4 treasures. Lung Shiqi should have been disappointed, but after the four-legged metal swallowing beast broke through to tier 4, an extremely weak and timid voice entered Lung Shiqi's mind. Master? Lung Shiqi picked up the four-legged metal swallowing beast and looked at it in surprise. You've gained intelligence? Why yes, master. This time the four-legged metal swallowing beast's voice was much smoother. It sounded like a baby who had just learned how to speak. The astonishment in Lung Shiqi's eyes intensified. This little thing could actually understand what he was saying. However, the four-legged metal swallowing beast was only rank 4. One had to know that the king of venomous worms was already rank 5, but it only had a little bit of intelligence. It was impossible for it to communicate through spiritual power. Could this be the result of intelligence strengthening? Lung Shiqi thought of a possibility. He immediately summoned the king of venomous worms and fed it a large number of strengthening pills, all of which were added to intelligence. Sure enough, just as the king of venomous worms swallowed a few thousand system coins, a slightly cold boy's voice appeared. Master. Lung Shiqi nodded with a surprised expression. Intelligence strengthening could indeed unlock the pet's intelligence. Although this did not directly increase the pet's combat power, the significance was great. For example, he could have the king of venomous worms help him track and gather some information, and then report back to him. After all, his Byakugan could only see the aura of spiritual power, but could not hear anything. Another example was if the four-legged metal swallowing beast discovered any treasure. He could also directly and accurately report it so as to avoid embarrassing situations like when he used the treasure-seeking compass in the demonic Miasma Mountains. In order to help the king of venomous worms and the four-legged metal swallowing beast evolve and unlock their intelligence, Lung Shiqi spent nearly 10,000 system coins. However, he felt that it was worth it this time. Lung Shiqi briefly communicated with them for a while before putting them back into the pet space. He saw that he still had about 13,000 system coins, so he opened the system shop to take a look. The system shop was now filled with a dazzling array of goods, and it could be refreshed several times. Lung Shiqi's goal was very clear. What he wanted the most now was not cultivation methods and spiritual skills. This was because he did not lack cultivation methods and spiritual skills for the time being, and it would take him a long time to digest them. What he lacked the most now was trump cards. It was not a spiritual skill like the Void of the Floating Dragon, but a life-saving trump card like the one Li Zhangtao used before he died that did not consume any spiritual power. He was confident that he was now very strong, but those powerful spiritual skills would also consume a lot of spiritual power. If he could kill the enemy, it would be fine. However, if he could not kill the enemy, then he would be in an extremely dangerous situation. Lung Shiqi browsed through the system shop, but did not find what he wanted. He decisively clicked on the refresh button, and all the goods changed. This time he had a very special item, the Scarecrow Substitute. Scarecrow Substitute can withstand one fatal attack. Price: 10,000 system coins. Lung Shiqi did not hesitate to buy the Scarecrow Substitute. 10,000 system coins for a life. Was there a better deal in the world than this? However, he had just obtained more than 40,000 system coins not long ago. In just a short while he only had about 3,000 system coins left. He could really spend money like water. After storing the Scarecrow Substitute, Lung Shiqi took out the letter from the weapon refining Grand Master Meng Jingyi. His eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. Before leaving Ningyan County he definitely had to make a trip to Xinduan Peak. He could either upgrade the Devil Arrival Saber to a level 7 precious weapon, or ask Meng Jingyi to forge a level 7 precious weapon for him. In any case he had a lot of precious high-grade materials now. Moreover, there was no time to lose. He had to get to Xinduan Peak before the news of Li Zhangtao's death and his takeover of Dark Thunder Manor spread. Otherwise Meng Jingyi's favor would be useless. After explaining his intentions to Feng Shabo and Sulwan, he directly left Dark Thunder Manor. Lung Shiqi found a deserted place and opened the system map. The distance between Dark Thunder Manor and Xinduan Peak was about 3,000 li. After he broke through to the Gang Spirit Realm, the teleportation range of the Fate skill had reached 2,000 li. With a flash of tricolored light under his feet, he appeared 2,000 li away in an instant. Then he summoned Gu King and turned it into a set of flowing light armor. He took a step and soared into the air. 2 pairs of 5-colored wings unfolded on his back. As the 4 wings flapped, his figure directly turned into a flowing light and broke through the air. Chapter 601. Xinduan Peak could be said to be the place that all the refiners in the world yearned for the most. It could also be said that all the outstanding refiners basically came from Xinduan Peak. Below Xinduan Peak, there were several unusually lively towns. Almost all of them came to ask the disciples of Xinduan Peak to refine for them. However, refining was not something that could be done overnight. Even if it was a low-level spiritual weapon, it would take a long time. Therefore, there were many people gathered at the foot of Xinduan Peak all year round. It had always been very lively. Leng Shiqi, who had changed his body shape and appearance, came to the foot of Xinduan Peak. Looking at the densely packed figures, he had a headache. He did not have time to wait here. Then he stirred up his spiritual power, and a vigorous spiritual power aura suddenly spread out. All the spirit cultivators below the 4 realms of celestial being were shaken to the ground. "Who is it? How dare you?" The people who were flipped over immediately started cursing. "Sure, that's a spirit astral realm expert. Even a spirit astral realm expert has to line up in person?" Looking around, the people lining up here were basically low-level spirit cultivators. Some of them were here to refine spiritual weapons for themselves, but many of them were here to do some small business for others. Leng Shiqi's movement was not small. Immediately, 2 disciples of Xinduan Peak came over with unfriendly expressions. One of them cupped his hands and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Your Excellency's cultivation is profound, and it seems that your identity is extraordinary. May I know what business you have in Xinduan Peak?" Leng Shiqi took out the envelope and said, "I have no ill intentions. Please give this letter to Master Meng Jingyi of your sect." The disciple looked at the signature on the envelope. It was Meng Jingyi himself. He said, "Your Excellency, please wait for a moment. I will go and report." Soon, in less than half an hour, the person hurried over and said, "Elder Meng invites you up." His attitude changed very quickly, and the way he addressed him directly became "Your Excellency." Leng Shiqi thought that the letter was indeed true. The 2 of them went up the mountain together. Along the way, Leng Shiqi heard the clanging of iron. Fortunately, the higher they went, the fewer such sounds. This was because high-level weapon refiners had even more advanced refining methods, and they were no longer just simply forging iron. On the way, he met some disciples of Xinduan Peak. They were not surprised to see Leng Shiqi, a master of Gang Spirit Realm. They all seemed to be used to it. After all, countless people came to Xinjian Peak to refine weapons. Those who could be led here were all big shots. Not to mention Leng Shiqi, who was in the Gang Spirit Realm, they had seen many masters in the Oneness of Heaven and Men Realm and even masters in the Tianyuan Realm. Meng Jingyi was one of the few master refiners of the Xinduan Peak. He was second only to great grandmasters. His residence was on a separate mountain. The disciple stopped in front of a huge courtyard and cupped his hands to Leng Shiqi. "Esteemed guest, Elder Meng is inside. I can only escort you here." Leng Shiqi nodded. He stepped into the courtyard and immediately felt a wave of heat. This level of heat had no effect on him, but he was sure that if a spirit aperture realm cultivator walked in, they would have to activate their spirit armor to stand here safely. There were some broken weapons and materials everywhere in the courtyard. It looked a bit messy. In the center of the courtyard there was a huge furnace. The heat wave was coming from this furnace. On the other side of the furnace sat a somewhat elegant middle-aged man. His hair was slightly messy. He waved his hand and several materials were raised. Then, a terrifying flame gushed out of the furnace and melted all the materials in an instant. This person was the master refiner of Xinduan Peak, Meng Jingyi. Meng Jingyi's image was different from Leng Shiqi's impression of a weapon refiner. He thought that Meng Jingyi should be a muscular man. It was Leng Shiqi's first time seeing a weapon refiner. He didn't say anything to disturb him and watched with interest for a while. He also noticed that Meng Jingyi was also a spirit astral realm expert. Meng Jingyi's spirit astral realm had a trace of aura similar to the pure gold earth dragon flame. It seemed that it was also supported by some kind of heavenly strange flame. It seemed that Xinduan Peak also had heavenly strange flames. After half an hour, Meng Jingyi had a short sword embryo in his hand. He tidied it up and threw an unknown stone to Leng Shiqi. "Sit." Leng Shiqi didn't hesitate and sat down. Meng Jingyi took out the letter and said, "I don't like Li Zhangtao, but I have to repay the favor I owe him. Tell me, what do you want?" Leng Shiqi took out the Demon Advent War Blade and said, "Elder Meng, Do you think this blade has the possibility of evolving into a treasure weapon? Meng Jingyi took the Demon Advent War blade with a surprised look on his face. He turned the Demon Advent War blade over and over for a long time. Finally, he touched the faint blood stain on it and said in a low voice, "This is a murderous weapon. It is full of spirituality and has the potential to evolve into a treasure weapon. It's just that the materials used to forge it were not good enough. As long as you can give me a few level 7 or level 8 materials, preferably materials with the property of this blade, I have a 70% chance of evolving it." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was stunned. Meng Jingyi said level 7 or level 8 materials as if they were cabbages on the roadside. If it had been half a month ago, Leng Shiqi would not have been able to take out even a single level 7 material. However, things were different now. Not to mention that Li Zhangtao's mustard seed bracelet contained level 7 materials. What gave him more confidence was the secret treasure left behind by the Star Tribe. As a matter of fact, there were countless materials for refining weapons in the secret palace. Dense piles of refining materials filled the entire hall. Among them, the lowest grade was at the 5th level, and the most numerous were at the 6th level. 7th level materials were the norm, and 8th level materials were not rare either. There were even 9th level materials. When Leng Shiqi opened the palace door, he was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses. After that, he filled more than a dozen mustard seed bracelets to the brim. Even the system space was almost full before he moved all the materials away. Leng Shiqi took a portion of these materials. Although it was only a portion, it was still a huge amount. However, he didn't sell these materials to the system. This was because he was preparing to establish his own force. Refining materials were indispensable. Leng Shiqi took out 3 level 7 materials and 1 level 8 material from the pile and handed them to Meng Jingyi. Meng Jingyi murmured, "Soul Crying Crystal, Demon Soul, and Blood Bamboo are all very good level 7 materials." This is, when he saw the last piece of stone, which was the size of a fist and looked dark, but in fact, there were countless stars in the dark, he couldn't help but be stunned. Suddenly Meng Jingyi's eyes gradually widened. Finally he exclaimed, "Is this the extreme star magic jade that has been extinct since ancient times?" Chapter 602. The extreme star demonic jade was able to make Meng Jingyi, the Divine Forge Mountain's master artificer, lose his composure. It was obvious that this item was extraordinary. This also surprised Leng Shiqi a little. The extreme star demonic jade was something he had taken out from the Star Tribe's secret vault. He had only taken it out because it seemed to contain a very pure demonic aura. He had never thought that this item would be so precious. He could only say, "Yes, this is it. I wonder if these materials are enough to upgrade the Devil's Arrival Battle Blade?" Enough, definitely enough. Meng Jingyi's eyes flashed with a golden light as he stared at the extreme star demon jade. "Your Excellency's status is absolutely extraordinary. You can even find such an ancient treasure. If I use the extreme star demon jade, then I have a 90% chance of success." 90%. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. Although he didn't know how to forge artifacts, he still knew a little about it. Generally speaking, even a master artificer like Meng Jingyi wouldn't succeed every time he forged a 6th level spirit artifact. As for 7th level artifacts, his success rate was definitely less than 50%. Although Leng Shiqi wasn't directly forging artifacts but upgrading them, a 90% chance of success was still very shocking. This was obviously a good thing for Leng Shiqi. He immediately cupped his fists and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Elder Meng. How long will it take to upgrade the Devil's Arrival Battle Blade?" Eunuch Gao had already received the news and should have already sent someone to take over the Dark Thunder Manor in Tranquil Sun County. It would take about half a month, so he couldn't stay here for too long. Meng Jingyi still held the extreme star demonic jade and said excitedly, 10 days? No, it will be completed within 10 days. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was delighted and said, "Good, then I'll wait outside for Elder Meng's good news." Go. Meng Jingyi waved his hand casually, his attention focused on the extreme star demonic jade. Leng Shiqi walked out of the courtyard and sat down cross-legged. He began to regulate his breathing and split a portion of his divine sense to deduce spirit techniques in his spiritual sea. Actually, there were a few resting areas on Xinduan Peak that were specially prepared for VIPs. After all, refining was a delicate job that required a lot of time, so the headquarters had people waiting outside. However, Leng Shiqi still guarded the door because he had to stop some people. Although the news of Li Zhangtao's death had been blocked by him, he had thrown Li Zhangtao's head out in the open. Many people had seen this scene, so it was inevitable that the news would spread. Leng Shiqi didn't care if anyone else heard about it, but he couldn't let Meng Jingyi know. Once Meng Jingyi knew that Li Zhangtao was dead, the favor in the letter would naturally not count. Then Leng Shiqi would have made a wasted trip. Seeing that his devil's arrival battle saber was already on the path to becoming a cosmic artifact, he could not afford to fail at the final step. Therefore he planned to stop anyone who wanted to get close to the courtyard and Meng Jingyi. The next 3 days were quite peaceful. Only 2 disciples came to deliver messages, but they were both scared away by Leng Shiqi. However, on the 4th day trouble came. On this day, Leng Shiqi saw a disciple of Xinduan Peak coming over with an old man. Judging from the disciple's respectful manner, it was obvious that the person behind them was not simple. When he got closer, he saw that the old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was in high spirits and his cultivation was at the late stage of gang spirit realm. To Leng Shiqi's surprise, judging from the old man's clothes, he was actually from the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. He was quite familiar with the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. In particular, he had encountered 3 masters of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect when he tried to assassinate Lei Haoqing some time ago, which meant that the Thousand Illusion Sword sect had been roped in by Lei Haoqing. In Leng Shiqi's view, the Thousand Illusion Sword sect had completely gone astray. They valued the identity of a top sect too much. As far as he knew, there was only one expert of Tianyuan realm left in the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, and he seemed to be dying soon. It was normal for a sect to rise and fall. In fact, the more difficult the situation was, the more they should focus on cultivating young disciples. As long as they had a solid foundation, even if they temporarily fell out of the world sect list and lost the title of a top sect, they would have a chance to regain it in the future. However, the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect had actually killed off a rare genius like Oziu for the sake of the Divine Illusion Palace's legacy cultivation method, causing him to fall into a situation where he was unable to catch up. This was simply picking up sesame seeds and losing watermelons. No, the result was that they had not picked up the sesame seed and lost the watermelon. What Leng Shiqi despised even more was that the Thousand Illusion Sword sect actually dared to rely on Lei Haoqing and get involved in the fight for the throne among the princes. The Thousand Illusion Sword sect thought that by choosing a prince to support him to the throne, they would be able to enjoy endless status and resources in the future. Naturally, they would be able to solve their current predicament. However, they did not know that because they had sided with Lei Haoqing had completely lost the right to fight for the throne. Leng Shiqi was a member of the Dark Thunder Guards. Although he had never seen Lei Qingjun, he knew very well that Lei Qingjun wanted to get rid of these top sects that could threaten the stability of the dynasty at any time. The warning given to the Mountain Sea sect in Donglin County was a signal. It was a pity that Lei Haoqing did not see it. He seemed to have great momentum now, but he did not know that he had personally cut off the possibility of ascending to the throne. This also meant that not only would the Thousand Illusion Sword sect not get what they wanted, but they would also attract Lei Qingjun's attention. If things went wrong, Lei Qingjun might make a move on this declining top sect. Therefore, when Leng Shiqi saw the people from the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, his heart flashed with a trace of sympathy. Seeing that they were approaching, Leng Shiqi stretched out his hand to block their path. Elder Meng is refining tools. It is inconvenient to disturb him. You are? The Xinduan Peak disciple looked at Leng Shiqi in confusion. Leng Shiqi explained, my surname is Lu. Elder Meng is refining a weapon for me. The Xinduan Peak disciple cupped his fists and said, so you are a guest. However, the 2 behind me are also honored guests. Moreover, refining tools is not a continuous process, so it doesn't matter. As long as you give the materials to Elder Meng and tell him the style and characteristics of the weapon you want, it will be fine. You have no conflict. However, Leng Shiqi still shook his head. He was sure that the people from the Thousand Illusion Sword sect must have known about Li Zhangtao's death. It was normal for top sects like them to inquire about the news when they came to a place. Although they would most likely not mention this to Meng Jingyi, just in case, Leng Shiqi still could not let them in. The Xinduan Peak disciple and the 2 people from the Thousand Illusion Sword sect frowned at the same time. They were actually stopped by an outsider. What was going on? The old man walked up and said, young Master Lu, right? This old man is Elder Yen Mu of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Everyone is here to ask Master Meng to refine a weapon. Why make things difficult for each other? Leng Shiqi was expressionless. First come, first served. Does Elder Yen not understand such a simple principle? His attitude made Yen Mu's face sink. Their Thousand Illusion Sword sect had recently befriended Lei Haoqing and obtained many resources. This time he was ordered to come here to refine a level 7 spirit sword. He finally came up the mountain, but he did not expect to be stopped by an outsider. Moreover, his attitude was so cold. This made him angry. The Shunduan Peak disciple also said, "Young Master Lu, it is not appropriate for you to be so unyielding in my God-broken mountain." His words had a hint of threat. Leng Shiqi said even more forcefully, "Elder Ming personally said that no one is allowed to enter before the refinement is completed. If you rashly barge in and cause the refinement to fail, how much responsibility do you have?" Chapter 603. Hearing Leng Shiqi's words, Yen Mu and Li Shiqi both hesitated for a moment. If Meng Jingyi had really said that, it would be fine, but who could guarantee that Leng Shiqi didn't say it casually? But it was not appropriate for them to break in like this. In fact, Leng Shiqi also used this to scare away the people in front of him. Seeing Yen Mu hesitate, he continued, "To be honest, Master Meng also said that my weapon would be finished in a few days. You two just need to wait for a few more days. What's wrong with that?" Yen Mu didn't care if it was a normal day, but now he was in urgent need of this 7th level spiritual sword, because they had to win the game on behalf of Lei Haoqing in a grand meeting soon. And Leng Shiqi's attitude really annoyed him. Yen Mu said in a deep voice, "Child Lu, I just need to go in and say a few words. How long can it take? Besides, this is Shunduan Peak. Do you want to be the host here?" At the end of his words, Yen Mu condensed the sword gang around him, but the amazing sword intent had already shrouded Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi didn't say a word. His spiritual power moved, and a gust of wind suddenly appeared around him. Light gray strange wind suddenly appeared, making the air whistling. The disciple of Shunduan Peak was only at the spirit transformation realm. He was so scared that his face turned pale. He didn't expect that Leng Shiqi and Li Shiqi would start a fight. He wanted to mediate, but under the pressure of two masters of Gang Spirit Realm, he couldn't even open his mouth. He could only run away like a wisp of smoke to call for reinforcements. Yen Mu's eyes narrowed. This child Lu was at the 2nd level of Gang Spirit Realm at such a young age. Who on earth was he? So Yen Mu didn't directly attack but asked, "May I ask who your master is? If you want to fight, then fight. If not, then retreat. Why are you so long-winded?" Leng Shiqi didn't give Yen Mu a good face. This made Yen Mu even more unbearable. "No matter who you are so arrogant. As an elder, I should teach you a lesson." Before he could finish his sentence, he used his fingers as a sword. Dazzling sword light illuminated the mountaintop, and a terrifying sword force slashed down. Leng Shiqi clasped his hands together, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth trembled. Endless wind spiritual energy madly gathered, and suddenly the wind and clouds changed, and a storm visible to the naked eye swept through the world. The storm also contained a strange power of nirvanic extermination, and it instantly shattered Yen Mu's sword aura. This was the rank 6 spiritual skill that came with the Nirvana Remnant Wind Scroll, Whirlwind Dispersing Clouds. Leng Shiqi used the wind power of the Wind and Thunder Godly Luck Stone to condense the Nirvana Remnant Wind. This kind of spiritual highland contained a trace of the power of Nirvana and could eliminate most of the spiritual highland. But Yen Mu was shocked. Child Lu was a spiritual practitioner in Gang Spirit Realm, and he had mastered such a strange wind gang. Seeing the storm sweeping towards him, Yen Mu struck out with his sword. As a master of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, he was good at swordsmanship. But Yen Mu felt a little disgraced that he was forced to use his sword to deal with a man in the early stage of Gang Spirit Realm. When the spiritual sword was unsheathed, Yen Mu's momentum suddenly changed, and he became as sharp as an arrow. The sword river turned back and tore the storm apart, and the sword light mixed with some golden streamers attacked Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi instantly saw that the golden sword light was some kind of illusion, which had no effect on him. He moved his spirit, and the majestic spiritual force directly destroyed the golden sword light. He changed the spiritual seal in his hand, and the flames around him were monstrous. The golden dragon flame came out and condensed into 2 huge flaming lions. This was the flame transformation skill that Senior Huang was best at. The wind helped the fire, and the flaming lions grew with the wind, and their bodies expanded to 200 or 300 feet. The raging dragon flame made the whole mountain hot, and even the air began to distort slightly. Yen Mu's expression became more dignified. The golden dragon flame threatened him more than the nirvana remnant wind. He secretly exclaimed, "This man can condense two kinds of gang spirit, one more powerful than the other. Where did he come from?" Just as they were fighting, a strong spiritual pressure suddenly fell from the sky not far away. In an instant, the sky darkened, and both Yen Mu's sword and Ling Shiqi's flaming lions dissipated into nothingness. Only a great master of the oneness of heaven and man realm could do this. A thin figure appeared between the two and he said, "I'm Zhu Tao, the elder of the martial hall of the Xinduan Peak. Both of you are distinguished guests of the Xinduan Peak, but we don't allow anyone to mess around." The Xinduan Peak was famous for refining weapons, but it didn't mean that there were no spirit cultivators who specialized in fighting. Otherwise, if a strong enemy came, how could they resist the enemy? The martial hall gathered the most powerful disciples of the Xinduan Peak. There were not many of them, but each of them had outstanding strength. Yen Mu cupped his hands and said, "So it's Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu may not know, but this child blocked this old man for no reason and did not allow me to enter the courtyard. What is the reason for this?" This old man had no choice but to take action. Zhu Tao looked at Ling Shiqi and Ling Shiqi said bluntly, "Grandmaster Meng is forging a weapon for this one and should not be disturbed." Facing Zhu Tao, he did not retreat because Meng Jingyi was returning a favor. Naturally, he would think that Zhu Tao was upgrading the Demon Advent Battle Blade. Zhu Tao's lips moved slightly but he did not make a sound. It seemed like he was directly transmitting his voice to Meng Jingyi. After a while, Zhu Tao looked at Ling Shiqi and said, "Elder Meng is indeed inconvenient, so I ask Elder Yen of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect to wait for a few more days." This. Yen Mu could not help but be startled. He was unwilling, but even the higher-ups of the Xinduan Peak had personally spoken, which meant that he no longer had a chance. "Elder Zhu, I am also in urgent need of a spirit tool. It was not easy for me to have the opportunity to come up the mountain." Before he could finish his sentence, Zhu Tao spoke up again, "My divine forge mountain doesn't lack tool refiners the most. I can make the decision to get you a free tool refining grandmaster." Yen Mu's face lit up. It did not matter which artificer it was, as long as he could forge a 7th grade spirit sword, he would have completed his mission. "Many thanks, Elder Zhu. Come with me." Zhu Tao turned and left. Yen Mu followed closely, but before he left, he gave Ling Shiqi a fierce glare. Ling Shiqi did not care. In any case, he had changed his body and appearance before coming to the Xinduan Peak. Even when he fought with Yen Mu, he deliberately used a spirit technique that he rarely used. As long as he did not fight with Yen Mu in the future, it would be impossible for him to be recognized. After sending away this trouble, Ling Shiqi continued to sit cross-legged. 6 days later, a shocking sharp intent suddenly appeared in the courtyard. Immediately after, Meng Jingyi's laughter came from inside. "Ha ha, as expected of the extreme star demonic jade, I actually forged a 7th grade spirit sword." Chapter 604. Hearing Meng Jingyi's voice, Ling Shiqi was overjoyed. He knew that the Devil Arrival Battle Blade had successfully evolved. He walked into the courtyard and saw Meng Jingyi holding onto a long and narrow demonic blade with a face full of excitement. Seeing Ling Shiqi enter, Meng Jingyi hurriedly said, "Young Master Lu, quickly come and take a look. Is this blade to your liking?" Ling Shiqi took over the Devil Arrival Battle Blade. From its appearance, the current Devil Arrival Battle Blade was not as wide as before. It had become slender. The curvature of the blade had a sense of beauty. The color was still mainly black, but there was an eye-catching blood stain in the middle of the blade. When Ling Shiqi injected a bit of spirit energy, the originally pitch-black blade seemed to have countless stars, but if you looked carefully, you would not be able to see them. It was as if the Devil Arrival Battle Blade was a black hole, swallowing all the starlight. The most important thing was that the moment Ling Shiqi held onto the Devil Arrival Battle Blade, there was an indistinct thought that touched his primordial spirit, making him feel that the Devil Arrival Battle Blade was like his own arm that he could control at will. Ling Shiqi knew that this was the spirit of the Devil Arrival Battle Blade. It was just that the spirit of a 7th-level artifact was still in its embryonic form. At most, it could form a thought. But even so, Ling Shiqi was pleasantly surprised, because the spirituality he felt from the 10 Directions Floating Snow Spear and Spirit Fox Lotus Bow was far inferior to the Devil Arrival Battle Blade. This meant that the Devil Arrival Battle Blade's quality was far superior to ordinary 7th-level artifacts. "How is it? Are you satisfied?" Meng Jingyi asked with a smile. Leng Shiqi immediately cupped his fists and said, "This blade is to my liking. It is much better than I expected. Master Meng truly lives up to his reputation." Ah. Meng Jingyi laughed, "This blade of yours has great potential. Adding the extreme Star Devil Jade, it is natural for it to reach the 7th level. However, this blade was truly a ferocious weapon. Perhaps young Master Lu had also noticed that this blade was able to absorb the qi and blood of high-level spirit cultivator and continuously strengthen itself. In this way, this blade even has the potential to advance to the 8th step of the heavenly soldier, but if it absorbs too much blood and evil energy, I'm afraid it will affect your mind, and it will be very easy for you to fall into the demonic path." After listening to Meng Jingyi, Leng Shiqi wasn't worried. There was nothing wrong with a murderous weapon. After all, a weapon was just a weapon, a tool used to kill people. What's more, Leng Shiqi had a lot of demonic cultivation methods. He himself was a demonic cultivator, so why would he be afraid of falling into the demonic path? The spiritual energy in Leng Shiqi's body surged wildly. His long sword soared into the sky, and suddenly, an endless amount of demonic energy erupted. It soared into the sky, causing the demonic shadows to howl and dark clouds to cover the entire mountain. This time, even Leng Shiqi himself was shocked. Just now, he had only used his spiritual energy to activate the saber and had not used any spiritual techniques. However, he did not expect that it would cause such a powerful commotion. If he used this saber to unleash demonic, ephemeral bloom, the power would be unimaginable. Meng Jingyi said proudly, "It's very powerful, right? However, you should put it away first so as not to destroy me. Alright, this saber can be considered as newly forged. You should give it a name." Leng Shiqi thought about it and agreed. Now that the saber was a 7th-step treasure weapon, it was time to change its name. He pondered for a moment and said, "Then let's call it the Blood-Soaked Star Demon Saber." "Not bad." Meng Jingyi nodded and said, "Also, this saber has just been forged and needs to be nurtured for a while. It's best if you don't put it in the ring bracelet and wear it by your side. As time passes, your connection with the blood-soaked Star Demon Saber will become closer. I have also specially forged a scabbard for you. Take it." As Meng Jingyi spoke, he handed over a scabbard and a small piece of the extreme Star Demon Jade. Leng Shiqi only took the scabbard. He put the blood-soaked Star Demon Saber back into the scabbard and carried it on his back. He cupped his fists and said, "Elder Meng, you have helped me so much. Take the rest of the extreme Star Demon Jade as a small token of my appreciation." This. Meng Jingyi revealed a hesitant expression. He had helped Leng Shiqi refine a tool to return the favor. It was reasonable to say that he did not need to receive any compensation. However, the extreme Star Demon Jade was too precious and he liked it very much. This put him in a dilemma. As for Leng Shiqi, he had earned a favor for nothing. He could tell that Meng Jingyi was not a shrewd person. Now that he had obtained the top-grade 7th-step blood-soaked Star Demon Saber and his strength had increased greatly, he could not cheat Meng Jingyi too much. Therefore, this small piece of extreme Star Demon Jade was really a token of his appreciation. So he said, "Elder Meng, please do not refuse. I still have important matters to attend to, so I will take my leave first." With that, he turned and left. Meng Jingyi clenched his fists and put away the extreme Star Demon Jade in the end. Leng Shiqi rushed back to Dark Thunder Manor in Ningyan County. The people sent by Eunuch Gao had already arrived. As soon as he walked through the door, a strong middle-aged man walked towards him. He smiled warmly and said, "Brother Lu, you have finally returned. I am Zhang Sunshi. I have been ordered by Eunuch Gao to take over the position of Ningyan County's inspector. This time, Brother Lu has helped Eunuch Gao take back Ningyan County." Eunuch Gao is overjoyed. "This is the first time I have seen Eunuch Gao so happy. Brother Lu, you will be rewarded greatly when you return." Leng Shiqi had also heard of the name Zhang Sunshi. He was one of Eunuch Gao's trusted subordinates and was at the early stage of oneness of heaven and man. However, Zhang Sunshi had relied on his own ability to break through. He was not someone Li Zhangtao could compare with. Leng Shiqi also laughed and said, "Brother Zhang Sun is too polite. I was just lucky." Lucky? Zhang Sunshi would not believe this. No matter how lucky he was, how could he kill Li Zhangtao, a master of oneness of heaven and man? After Zhang Sunshi came to Ningyan County, he also learned about what Leng Shiqi had done. However, even if Leng Shiqi had the help of the Huangchuan tribe, it was impossible for him to kill Li Zhangtao. Not to mention Li Zhangtao's cultivation, he also had many masters of Gang Spirit Realm and Spiritual Aperture Realm around him. He also had various life-saving trump cards. Even if Zhang Sunshi wanted to kill Li Zhangtao, it was almost impossible. Thus, it could be seen that Leng Shiqi must have hidden a lot of secrets. However, Zhang Sunshi was not in the mood to ask about these things. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi had taken back the Dark Thunder Hall of Ningyang County. From now on, it was Zhang Sunshi's turn to be the local tyrant. Therefore he was very enthusiastic about Leng Shiqi. The two walked into the meeting hall and exchanged greetings for a while. Leng Shiqi asked, "Brother Zhang Sun, did you bring a formation master this time?" Zhang Sunshi smiled and said, "Of course. Brother Lu must have taken a fancy to Li Zhangtao's treasury. It's a pity that he has been operating here for too long. The treasury's formations can be said to be stacked on top of each other. Activating one will affect the whole thing. It will take some time before it can be completely removed. But Brother Lu, you can rest assured. When the formation is broken, I will immediately send someone to send you 50% of the resources." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was a little surprised. If he had all the resources in the treasury at the beginning, but in the end he would have to give most of them to eunuch Gao. It would be good if he could get 20% or 30%. Now he could get 50%, which was beyond his expectations. He also knew that Zhang Sunshi was taking this opportunity to make friends with him. He also cupped his hands and said, "Brother Zhang Sun, you are really generous." Then they continued to exchange pleasantries for a while. He, Feng Shamo and Sulwan prepared to return. From Ningyang County to the imperial capital, they first needed to go to a nearby county and then teleport. However, Leng Shiqi did not go with Feng Shamo and Sulwan. Instead, he prepared to go alone. Chapter 605. In a dark room deep within the Dark Thunder Manor of the imperial capital, a figure was sitting there. Threads of chilling air permeated the entire room. This person was one of the four managers, Li Zhangtao. Suddenly, an ethereal voice sounded in the room, "My lord, everything has been arranged. The area within 100 miles of the teleportation formation is under our control. As long as Lu Xingji shows up, he will definitely die." Li Juqing didn't say anything. He nodded silently. The killing intent in his eyes was chilling. Leng Shiqi dared to take his Ningyang County, so he must pay the price of death. On the other side, Leng Shiqi knew that Li Juqing was very narrow-minded. It was very likely that Li Juqing would obstruct him or even kill him halfway, so he decided not to use the teleportation formation. Anyway, his fate skill could teleport him 2,000 miles. The Gu King's flying ability was also very fast. He could travel several hundred miles in a day in a straight line. So even if he didn't use the teleportation formation, he could still return to the imperial capital within a month. This way, no matter what Li Juqing did, he wouldn't be able to stop him from reaching the imperial capital. Hangzhou City was a famous transportation route in the Thunder Flame dynasty. It connected 4 or 5 counties around it. It was very prosperous. At the same time, a teleportation formation was secretly built in the city. Half a month later, Feng Shamo and Sulwan arrived at Hangzhou City. As soon as they entered the city, Feng Shamo frowned. He transmitted his voice to Sulwan, "We are being watched." Sulwan nodded secretly. As a blood-clothed assassin, she also sensed the danger. She was sure that there were at least several spirit astral realm masters watching them. Feng Shamo continued, "Humph, Leng Shiqi is indeed very cunning. He probably already predicted this situation, so he returned to the imperial capital alone." Sulwan still couldn't condense her voice into a line. She secretly made 2 gestures, meaning what should they do now? "Don't worry, their target is Leng Shiqi, not us. As long as Leng Shiqi doesn't show up, they won't act rashly. We can just go to the teleportation formation." 2 people were standing in a tall building in the center of Hangzhou City. At this moment, a Gang Spirit Realm expert bowed and said, "Lords, Lu Xingji's 2 slaves have just entered the city. Should we, since they could be called lords by Gang Spirit Realm experts, their cultivation could be imagined. They must be in the realm of oneness of heaven and men." In order to kill Leng Shiqi, Li Jueqing had sent 2 oneness of heaven realm and several Gang Spirit Realm experts. This force was comparable to the top force of a first-class force. It could be seen that Li Jueqing really hated Leng Shiqi to the core and wanted to get rid of him. The elegant man with the flute said, "Lu Xingji didn't show up?" In response to Lord Li's question, "No. That brat is quite smart. Perhaps he has already sensed something. Pass down the order to expand the search area. We must find Lu Xingji." "Understood, but what about his 2 servants? Those 2 people might be the bait Lu Xingji released." We can't touch them or we'll be alerting the enemy. Got it? After that person left, another older man said, Li Juning, if we really kill Lu Xingji, then the Li family will completely fall out with eunuch Gao. Leng Shiqi was the leader of the elite association, and he was also eunuch Gao's personal disciple. Eunuch Gao valued him greatly, and anyone with a discerning eye could tell that eunuch Gao intended to nurture Leng Shiqi as his successor. If they really assassinated Leng Shiqi this time, it was conceivable that eunuch Gao would be furious, and the Li family would also have to bear eunuch Gao's anger. Li Juning snorted, "Fourth uncle, if we fall out with eunuch Gao, so be it. That damn eunuch should have thought of this step when he was preparing to take away Ningyang County. Besides, do you think we're afraid of him?" Alas. Fourth uncle sighed slightly. After all, eunuch Gao is His Majesty's man. As long as His Majesty is still alive, eunuch Gao will be his biggest backer. It won't do us any good to fight him to the death. Do you think His Majesty will allow the Li family to hold 2 positions of the 4 directors? Li Juning sneered, "Fourth uncle, you worry too much. To be honest, how many years can His Majesty live? I've inquired that His Majesty is still working day and night, and his health is getting worse and worse. Even if he has the most precious medicine in the world, he can only force himself to hang on. If nothing goes wrong, the Thunderstorm dynasty will be ruled by someone else in 1 or 2 years at most, so we don't have to be too afraid of that old eunuch. Killing Lu Xingji this time is a warning to him. His Majesty is very clear that the Dark Thunder Guard can't be in chaos at such a critical moment. What's more, we just killed an inner supervisor at the early stage of Gang Spirit Realm. His Majesty won't offend us just because of an insignificant inner supervisor." Fourth uncle opened his mouth slightly as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't say it. He could only think to himself, what His Majesty doesn't want to see is the Li family dominating the Dark Thunder Guard. His Majesty will definitely use this as an excuse to weaken the power of the Li family. Alas, our Li family has been in the limelight for too long, so these juniors are too arrogant. At this time, Feng Shabo and Sulwan finally stepped into the interdomain transmission formation and directly teleported to the imperial capital. They had just arrived at the Xingji Pavilion in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard when someone handed the news to Li Jueqing. Seeing this news, Li Jueqing's face darkened and he said coldly, "If I see news of Lu Xingji's return, I'll kill him." At this time, eunuch Gao was still in the imperial palace. Recently, Lei Qingjun was planning something, so eunuch Gao was always by his side, so he didn't know that Li Jueqing was preparing to assassinate Leng Shiqi. It wasn't until he learned that Feng Shabo and Sulwan came back, but Leng Shiqi didn't, that he knew something was wrong. He hurriedly sent a large number of masters to the vicinity of Hangzhou City, hoping to receive Leng Shiqi. However, to his disappointment, there was no trace of Leng Shiqi at all. He originally thought that he was a step too late, but he found that Li Jueqing also didn't find Leng Shiqi. Eunuch Gao smiled inwardly. He knew that Leng Shiqi must have guessed all of this, and now he was hiding somewhere, returning to the imperial capital in another way. Thus, eunuch Gao was relieved, but this matter couldn't be let go so easily. Time passed day by day, and after more than 10 days, Li Jueqing became more and more irritable. After more than 10 days he still couldn't find Leng Shiqi. This made him very angry. "Sir." At this time, someone ran in with a hesitant expression. Li Jueqing was already in a bad mood, so he directly shouted, "If you have something to say, say it. That Lu Xingji, he's already returned." Bang! As soon as that person finished speaking, Li Jueqing fiercely waved his hand, and a terrifying force smashed that person into a pile of minced meat. Chapter 606. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was sitting in the main hall of Xingji Pavilion. His face was filled with exhaustion, but there was a cold smile on his face. Beside him, Feng Shiamo, Sulwan, Elder Huang, He Fei Chen and the other inspectors were all present. Others might not know that Leng Shiqi had been assassinated, but they knew. So for the past half a month they had been very worried. Although Leng Shiqi hadn't been promoted for long, he was able to distribute his power and resources to his subordinates. This treatment wasn't just good, especially those who were originally part of the 29 guards. Ever since they followed Leng Shiqi, not only were they able to hold their heads high, they were also able to receive endless resources. So of course they didn't want to lose this boss. Leng Shiqi finished listening to He Fei Chen's report. In the past half a month, eunuch Gao and Li Jueqing had been fighting openly and covertly. One wanted to kill him, the other wanted to save him. They had already clashed several times in the dark. but after fighting for so long, they couldn't even find Leng Shiqi's shadow. They also didn't expect Leng Shiqi to silently return to the capital. Fei Chen's head was full of doubts. He asked, "Sir, how did you come back during this time? We mobilized all the information we could, but we still couldn't find you. And that Li Jucheng, he definitely has his own methods of gathering information. This is the same as two senior managers going all out to find you, but they still couldn't find you. Sir, could it be that you flew back?" Leng Shiqi laughed inwardly. Fei Chen really did say it. He really did fly back. Ningyang County was tens of thousands of li away from the capital. He had used the Fate skill to teleport 2,000 li away. During the skill's cooldown, he had the Gu King transform into wings and fly 10,000 zhang in the air. With his incomparably deep spiritual energy, he could fly for several days without stopping. When his spiritual energy ran out, he would hide and recover. So his feet didn't touch the ground at all. It would be strange if others could find him. Leng Shiqi was about to speak to Fei Chen, but suddenly, a figure appeared in the hall. Everyone was startled, but they immediately lowered their heads respectfully. Because the person who came was Eunuch Gao. Eunuch Gao had also received news that Leng Shiqi had returned. He immediately rushed over as fast as he could. He looked at Leng Shiqi with a complicated expression. He waved his hand and the others consciously bowed and left. Disciple greets master. Leng Shiqi also bowed, but Eunuch Gao still didn't say anything. His eyes stared straight at Leng Shiqi, and finally landed on the blood-stained demonic blade on Leng Shiqi's back. There didn't seem to be anything strange with him. With him didn't seem to be in any way. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Eunuch Gao threw his head back and laughed loudly. His laughter was filled with delight. This was the first time Leng Shiqi had seen Eunuch Gao laugh so heartily. Eunuch Gao laughed for a few breaths before he stopped. He patted Leng Shiqi's shoulder and praised, "Good, good, good. You did very well. Not only did you help me take back Dark Thunder Manor in Ningyang County, but you also killed Li Zhangtao. You even avoided Li Jucheng's assassination and successfully returned. I really didn't misjudge you. I can imagine Li Jucheng's expression when he knows you're back. Hehe, I haven't been so happy in a long time." Leng Shiqi said modestly, "This is what disciples should do. Master, please take a seat." Eunuch Gao sat in the main seat in the hall. He said with a smile, "Xingji, I won't be long-winded. Just tell me what reward you want." Leng Shiqi was slightly surprised. Eunuch Gao even said this. Seemed he was really happy. He thought for a moment, then said, "I'll leave it to master." "You're still so cautious." Eunuch Gao nodded with satisfaction and said, "Well, you don't lack resources. I'll give you 100,000 merit points. You can get whatever resources you need." Eunuch Gao gave him 100,000 merit points. This was a huge amount that an ordinary War Thunder Guard might not be able to save up in their lifetime. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but be moved. "Also, do you remember that you all have the qualifications to enter the Heavenly Tomb after the elite meeting?" Eunuch Gao continued, "The Heavenly Tomb can't be opened at will. Every time it opens, a part of the spiritual power will leak out. This kind of spiritual power must be sealed for many years to replenish. Therefore, generally speaking, the Heavenly Tomb will only open once every 3 years. According to this time, you will only be able to enter after a year. I can let the 5 of you enter the Heavenly Tomb in advance. And I can let you stay in there for 1 more day." Leng Shiqi also specially went to the Heavenly Tomb to learn about it. Since the establishment of the Thunderfire dynasty, it was the place where the Sky Origin Realm experts died. Now, there were probably hundreds of Sky Origin Realm experts who died in there. It was filled with the insights and understanding of the spirit cultivation Tao of those experts. Even if he could comprehend a little bit, it would be enough to benefit him for a lifetime. Unfortunately, since they came to the imperial capital, the matter of entering the Heavenly Tomb seemed to have disappeared. Now that they could enter in advance and have 1 more day, even if Leng Shiqi had a strong will, he couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. Eunuch Gao smiled and said, "In addition to the 100,000 merit points and entering the Heavenly Tomb in advance, I also promised you that as long as you take back the Dark Thunder Manor in Ningyang County, I will give you the position of Deputy General Manager." "I have already left the position of Deputy General Manager in charge of Ningyang County for you. However, your strength and merits are not enough for you to be the Deputy General Manager. Otherwise, you will be ostracized by the other 3 General Managers." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi agreed. After all, the Deputy General Manager was in existence second only to the 4 General Managers. Normally, the position was held by a great expert in the unity of heaven and man realm. However, in the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters, there were many unity of heaven and man realm experts, but there were only 36 deputy general managers. This meant that if one wanted to be the deputy general manager, not only did they need strength, but they also needed qualifications, merits, and connections. Lung Shiqi's current connections were sufficient. With Eunuch Gao as his backer, Eunuch Gao had already vacated the position of deputy general manager for him. The path had already been paved. Unfortunately, his strength and contributions were far from enough. Seeing Lung Shiqi's normal expression, Eunuch Gao was even more satisfied. He said, "In terms of strength, you can only rely on yourself. Entering the heavenly tomb is an excellent opportunity. You have to grasp it well. In addition, I will also arrange some missions for you to increase your reputation and merits so that you can sit in the deputy general manager's position as soon as possible." As long as Lung Shiqi became the deputy general manager, Eunuch Gao's authority in the Dark Thunder Guard would be increased. After Lei Qingjun passed away, the possibility of him keeping his current position would be higher. "I see that you are very tired. Rest well for a few days. When you come out of the heavenly tomb, we will settle the score with Li Jueqing." Eunuch Gao's eyes were full of bone-chilling coldness when he said this. Chapter 607. A few days later, the 5 members of the elite meeting gathered in the Dark Thunder Mansion. The others also learned that they were about to enter the Tomb of Heaven, but they were a little confused. Why did they gather in the Dark Thunder Mansion? As the hosts, Lung Shiqi and Wu Diao naturally had to entertain the other 3. At this time, the 5 of them were drinking and chatting happily in Lung Shiqi's Xingji Pavilion. Now the 5 of them were all in Gang Spirit Realm. Except for Lung Shiqi, who was at the 2nd level of Gang Spirit Realm, the other 4 were at the 1st level of Gang Spirit Realm. Lung Shiqi, who had the lowest cultivation at the beginning, had surpassed them. But now no one would envy Lung Shiqi. Although they were hostile to each other in the small chaotic cave of 5 elements, most of them joined hands to break through the stairway to heaven. Although Lung Shiqi cheated them of a lot of resources, he did save their lives. And these people were more or less related to Lung Shiqi. For example, Wu Diao was still the inspector now. In this respect, he was Lung Shiqi's subordinate. Di Chuan had been feeling guilty since he escaped first last time. More importantly, he recently received news from the Huangchuan tribe that it was Lung Shiqi who helped the Huangchuan tribe destroy the Huangchuan tribe. Many third-class sects came to join them. They also controlled 3 mineral veins. It could be said that their momentum and strength had soared. He was more grateful to Lung Shiqi. And Zhuge Puha had regarded Lung Shiqi as the person he should support and assist. He hoped that one day he could restore the glory of the Star Clan. As for Delta Origi, she would only secretly work hard to catch up with Lung Shiqi. Therefore their relationship had unknowingly become much closer. When they were talking, Eunuch Gao came in. Lung Shiqi and others hurriedly stood up and said, "Greetings, Supervisor Gao. Everything has been arranged. Follow me," Eunuch Gao said bluntly. Then he turned around and left. Lung Shiqi and the others quickly followed him. But as he walked, he discovered something strange. The direction they were walking in was clearly the direction of Dark Thunder Manor's treasury. Could it be that the heavenly tomb was in Dark Thunder Manor? Lung Shiqi shook his head, thinking that it was impossible. However, Eunuch Gao said, "The heavenly tomb is actually located in the deepest part of the Dark Thunder Manor." Hearing this, Lung Shiqi almost bit his tongue. Even if you want to slap someone in the face, you can't do it so quickly. As you all know, the heavenly tomb is the place where a Sky Origin Stage cultivator passed away. Therefore, all information must be kept strictly confidential. Therefore, the heavenly tomb is best placed in the Dark Thunder Manor. In other words, it is precisely because of the existence of the heavenly tomb that the Dark Thunder Manor was built here, Eunuch Gao explained. Everyone was enlightened. So that's how it is. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of Dark Thunder Manor's treasury. This time, with Eunuch Gao personally leading the way, the guards outside did not stop them. Eunuch Gao led the 5 of them through one door after another. Every time they passed through a door, they would enter a room with even more precious resources. Everyone was envious. They only stopped when they arrived at the 7th door. This door looked very ordinary. Aside from being simple and unadorned, there was nothing special about it. However, when they arrived at this place, there were still a few extremely powerful divine senses that enveloped them. This place was also guarded by a Sky Origin Stage cultivator. This is the entrance to the heavenly tomb. Eunuch Gao instructed. Once you enter, you can walk around the heavenly tomb as you wish and look for things that are suitable for you. However, do not destroy a single blade of grass or tree inside. Do you understand? Lung Shiqi and the others said in unison, "Yes, Eunuch Gao." "Alright, I will open the heavenly tomb now." With that, Eunuch Gao's expression turned serious. A strange-shaped token appeared in his hand. Just as he was about to open the heavenly tomb, a voice came from behind him. "Eunuch Gao, why didn't you say anything about opening the heavenly tomb?" It turned out that Li Jucheng had walked over with two young men. Seeing Li Jucheng, Lung Shiqi's killing intent rose in his heart. Eunuch Gao's expression also darkened. "Li Jucheng, I didn't look for you, but you still dare to show yourself?" Li Jucheng chuckled and said, "Eunuch Gao, what are you talking about? As one of the 4 eunuchs, can't I enter the treasury?" Eunuch Gao glanced at the 2 people behind Li Jucheng and sneered, "What, Eunuch Li wants to bring people into the heavenly tomb? The 2 of them have the qualifications to enter the heavenly tomb." Li Jucheng walked in front of Eunuch Gao and looked him in the eyes. He was full of confidence. What Li Jucheng said was right. Although there were very few people who could enter the heavenly tomb each time, it was not only the elites of the elite association who could enter. People like the Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Division, the Patrol Guards, and some people who had outstanding achievements were also qualified to enter. Li Jucheng's 2 family members were qualified. Their names were Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi. Both of them had just entered the gang spirit realm and were about 40 years old. Those who could break through the gang spirit realm at this age were extremely rare geniuses, even if they were not as good as those in the elite club. They were the focus of the next generation of the Li family. Originally, the 2 of them were going to enter the heavenly tomb with Lung Shiqi 1 year later, but Li Jucheng found out that Eunuch Gao had opened the heavenly tomb in advance. If he didn't know, it would be fine. But now that he knew, he would never let go of this opportunity. What if I say no? Eunuch Gao didn't lose in momentum at all. Li Jucheng suddenly smiled. "I know you can open the heavenly tomb in advance because His Majesty allows it. Anyway, the heavenly tomb is going to open. What's wrong with 2 more people going in? Or is Steward Gao already able to cover the sky with one hand in the Dark Thunder Guards? You know, there are still several people who are qualified to enter the heavenly tomb. If they know that Steward Gao opened the heavenly tomb in advance and caused them to wait for 3 more years, do you think they will resent Steward Gao?" He was threatening Eunuch Gao. Those who were qualified to enter the heavenly tomb were definitely not simple. If those people made trouble together, it would be really a big trouble. That's right. It doesn't matter if there are 2 more people or 2 less people. Eunuch Gao said seriously, but he suddenly changed the topic. "But I won't let them go in. What are you going to do?" Li Jucheng's face darkened and he no longer pretended. He said bluntly, "Eunuch Gao, let's talk about the matter as it is. As long as you take the 2 juniors of the Li family in, I can help you cover it up. Otherwise, even if His Majesty has agreed, it is inevitable that some people will be dissatisfied with you. Those people may not be a direct threat to Steward Gao, but we are all officials in the court and will meet frequently. Sooner or later we will meet. When that time comes, I'm afraid Steward Gao won't be as strong as he is now." Eunuch Gao's eyes turned cold. He was about to retaliate when Lung Shiqi secretly sent a voice transmission to Eunuch Gao. "Master, why don't you let them in?" Eunuch Gao was puzzled. He knew that Lung Shiqi was a vengeful person. Li Jucheng had just sent people to kill him, but now he was willing to let Li Jucheng's people into the heavenly tomb? This didn't seem like Lung Shiqi's style. Eunuch Gao also sent a voice transmission. "Do you have some tricks up your sleeve again? Master, disciple has heard that the heavenly tomb is not very stable at times. Who knows if an accident might happen and someone might accidentally die inside." Lung Shiqi's voice was filled with dense killing intent. Hearing this, Eunuch Gao secretly smiled. He knew what to do. Chapter 608. After Eunuch Gao understood Lung Shiqi's intentions, he began to bargain with Li Jucheng. In the end, he agreed to let the 2 of them enter the heavenly tomb. Li Jucheng was the one who lost a little, but he was all smiles. On the other hand, Eunuch Gao's expression was a little ugly. Li Jucheng naturally felt that he had made a profit. He still beat Eunuch Gao. His mood improved a little after failing to assassinate Lung Shiqi. He turned around and said, "Li Xinhong, Li Xinqi, after the 2 of you enter the heavenly tomb, try your best to comprehend the various comprehensions within. Don't let Eunuch Gao down." "Yes, Patriarch," the 2 of them said at the same time. "Alright, I'll come to pick you up tomorrow." "Eunuch Gao, I'll take my leave first." Li Jucheng waved his hand and turned to leave. Eunuch Gao looked at Li Jucheng's back and secretly sneered. Then he went through a complicated process and finally opened the legendary heavenly tomb. Suddenly, a thick wave of heaven and earth origin energy rushed towards him. Just by inhaling a little, he could feel the spiritual energy in his body shaking. The strange thing was that this heaven and earth origin energy was very different from the dragon vein. The dragon vein was the place where the luck of the Thunderfire dynasty gathered. The heaven and earth origin energy there was extremely pure, to the point that it was almost visible to the naked eye. However, the spiritual power in the heavenly tomb was mixed with a lot of strange powers. They couldn't tell what those powers were, but they were all shocked. They knew that the strange powers must be the cultivation comprehension of the Sky Origin Stage cultivators who had passed away in this place. You guys can go in. You can walk freely in the heavenly tomb and comprehend the things that are most suitable for you. As for how much you can comprehend, it will depend on your own ability. Eunuch Gao waved his hand and Leng Shiqi and the others walked into the heavenly tomb. The heavenly tomb did not have a formation like the dragon vein. After they walked in, they were not separated. Leng Shiqi looked around and found that the heavenly tomb was not big or small. It was about 20 to 30 miles in radius. As far as the eye could see, there were huge tombs. Each tomb had a different shape and was surrounded by fog of different colors. At a rough glance, there were hundreds of tombs. They were the Sky Origin Stage cultivators who had died in this place for thousands of years. After their deaths, they did not build a beautiful tomb for themselves, nor did they insist on having their names passed down for hundreds of generations. Instead, they chose to end their lives here, contributing their last bit of value to the Thunderblaze dynasty. Just this magnanimity alone was worthy of admiration. The 7 people present all cultivated different cultivation methods. They looked around and found tombs that were similar to their own cultivation methods. Leng Shiqi was the only one left standing in the same spot. Because he didn't know where to go. In other words, he could go anywhere. Although his main cultivation technique was the Heavenly Cycle Star God technique, he had also integrated all the other cultivation techniques into it. It could be said that it contained all the attributes that he knew. Therefore, the insights left behind by every expert here were useful to him. Since that was the case, Leng Shiqi was not in a hurry to go to a tomb. He first walked around the heavenly tomb and then came to the center of the heavenly tomb. There was nothing special here. Leng Shiqi immediately sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. Next, his head spirit cavity shone and a green mini Leng Shiqi drilled out. His primordial spirit had left his body. When his primordial spirit appeared, the heavenly tomb became different. Everywhere, there were mysterious threads that could be seen with the naked eye connecting the heaven and earth. These threads were as thin as hair and had different colors. Leng Shiqi had seen similar threads in the 5 Elements Chaos Grotto heaven before. However, the difference now was that the threads in the heavenly tomb were constantly trembling. Every time they trembled, there seemed to be a strange and indescribable power spreading out. Leng Shiqi's primordial spirit was baptized by the strange power. Immediately, his divine sense went into a daze and he entered a strange state. In a split second, the water in front of him surged towards him, and several illusory figures suddenly appeared. Water nourishes all things and nourishes the world. The power of nourishment is the best of the law of water. No, water can carry a boat and also sink it. The power of waves is enough to destroy the heaven and earth. Too shallow. The surface of the water looks calm, but there are hidden turbulent waves. The combination of hardness and gentleness is the great Tao. Unfortunately, we are still one step behind. These people spoke one after another in a language that Leng Shiqi could not understand. Just as he was confused, the heaven and earth changed and he instantly arrived in a wind prison. Everything in the world is strong and fast. The power of the wind is the power that can best represent the law of wind. It is extremely narrow. The wind can be as slow as cotton and can kill without a trace. The law of wind is not only fast and slow. The wind is formless and can tear apart space, complementing the law of space. What's the use of saying it well? Didn't you die before comprehending the law of heaven and earth? Although Leng Shiqi still did not understand much, what these people said could not be separated from one word, and that was law. Although he had not been in contact with the law, he had heard of it. What was the law? Everything between heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the flow of time were all supported by the power of law. It could be said that the law of heaven and earth was the original power of this world. These were all what Leng Shiqi had heard in his previous life. In today's world they may not be exactly the same, but the difference would not be too big. He also thought that the spirit cultivators in the spirit gang realm used their own spiritual power as the foundation and stole a trace of heaven and earth's spiritual power with the help of external objects to condense spirit gang. And the spirit cultivators in the unity of heaven and men realm could be more compatible with heaven and earth and could directly mobilize a part of heaven and earth's spiritual power. As for the strong cultivators in the Tianyuan realm, as the name implied, they could already control heaven and earth's spiritual power. There was only one word difference between heaven and earth's spiritual power, but there was a huge difference between heaven and earth. Heaven and earth's spiritual power was the spiritual chi that overflowed between heaven and earth, which was the energy that spirit cultivators needed to absorb and transform into cultivation. The concentration of spiritual power in each place was different. And heaven and earth's spiritual power was the original power of this world. A person's body could be said to be a treasure that could continuously unearth one's potential. However, the problem was that a person's potential was not unlimited. No matter how much spiritual energy one could store, it was still one's own strength. How could it compete with the power of heaven and earth? If you could grasp even a trace of heaven and earth's spiritual power, it was enough to break mountains and rivers and crack the earth. Leng Shiqi had seen two strong cultivators in the Tianyuan realm fight. One was the pavilion master of the blood-clothing pavilion, Hateful Blade. When they were preparing to fight with the disciples of the Liuhe spiritual region in the Bloodkill Hall, Hateful Blade could cross space with just a light stroke. There was also Huang Baixing from the Mountain Sea sect in the Donglin County. When the entrance to the illusory spirit secret realm appeared, he could seal the entrance with a raise of his hand. And in the demonic Miasma Mountain range, the Tianyuan realm cultivators of the Imperial Beast Camp and the Blood Beast sect had also fought. Leng Shiqi did not see it, but just from the destructive power, he knew how terrifying the Tianyuan realm was. However, Leng Shiqi heard some clues from the conversation of the phantoms just now, and that was that the Tianyuan realm cultivators did not seem to be able to control the laws of heaven and earth. Then was there a higher realm above the Tianyuan realm? However, before he had time to think about it, the scene in front of him changed again. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in a strange world. The sky here was chaotic and filled with a terrifying sense of destruction, but the ground was lush and full of vitality. There were only two phantoms here. They did not speak but looked at Leng Shiqi at the same time. Chapter 609. Two godlike gazes fell on Leng Shiqi's body. His primordial spirit suddenly twisted, as if it would collapse at any moment. Leng Shiqi was horrified and quickly withdrew his primordial spirit. Just before his primordial spirit returned to his body, the lips of the two shadows moved as if they were saying something, but Leng Shiqi didn't hear it. He had just withdrawn his primordial spirit, but unexpectedly, a monstrous wave was set off in his spiritual sea. Boundless spiritual power of heaven and earth rushed in crazily. What he didn't know was that at this moment, with him as the center, all the spiritual power and all kinds of strange energy in the entire heavenly tomb were rapidly gathering, forming a huge vortex in the sky above Leng Shiqi. Such a huge commotion caused Gu San, Zhuge Puhe, Wu Diao, and the others to turn pale with fright. Even the Li families Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi looked at this unbelievable scene in amazement. At the same time, these people were also very depressed. They had just found a suitable comprehension for themselves, but before they could comprehend it, they were forcefully interrupted. Some people had already found the way. If they went down quietly, they would have gained a lot. Now that they were interrupted, of course they were not in a good mood. Delta Orgi was one of them. She raised her head and knew that this matter was most likely caused by Leng Shiqi. She knew that the gap between her and Leng Shiqi's strength was getting bigger and bigger. She originally wanted to use this opportunity to close the gap, but unfortunately such a thing had happened. Delta Orgi's face became as cold as ice, and she walked towards the center of the heavenly tomb. The others also knew that it was impossible to continue comprehending, so they all followed her. Li Xinhong's expression was also very ugly. He shouted in a low voice, "I just comprehended the cultivation experience of Yunzhou layman from 400 years ago, and even obtained his cultivation method inheritance. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Damn it, I want to see who dares to disturb my comprehension and run amok in the heavenly tomb." When everyone arrived at the center of the heavenly tomb, they were all stunned by the scene before them. Originally, the huge spirit energy vortex in the sky was shocking enough, but when they got closer they realized that Leng Shiqi was sitting under the vortex. A river of energy was pouring down like a river from the ninth heaven, pouring into Leng Shiqi's body. At this moment, the Lung Shiqi was surrounded by a variety of different energies. Some of these energies could coexist peacefully, but most of them rejected each other. Therefore, Lung Shiqi was not feeling well at the moment. Right now, there were many kinds of power running around aimlessly in his body. If it weren't for the fact that he had opened up enough spirit veins and his body was strong enough, he would have exploded long ago. What was even more troublesome was that there was also an indescribable thing constantly drilling into his astral sea of consciousness. These things had no shape, could not be seen or touched, but they caused Lung Shiqi to feel an incomparable swelling pain in his head, causing him to have a splitting headache. In particular, his primordial spirit had been seriously injured and was dispirited. There was no way for him to resist, so he could only let these powers run amok. Fortunately, the stars of his heavenly cycle star technique could also absorb a lot of energy, reducing some of the pressure on him. Lung Shiqi also noticed that Delta Origi and the others had arrived. An idea flashed through his mind. He reached out and grabbed the void, grabbing a cloud of dark yellow mist from his side and instantly enveloping Wu Diao. At first, Wu Diao was surprised, thinking that Lung Shiqi was going to attack him. However, when he touched the dark yellow mist, he immediately felt the familiar power of the earth fill his body. His face immediately lit up with joy. He immediately sat down cross-legged and began to absorb and comprehend the mysteries within. Then Lung Shiqi grabbed again, and a cloud of nebula rushed towards Zhuge Puha. With Wu Diao's previous experience, Zhuge Puha did not dodge, but chose to do the same thing as Wu Diao. Then a wild beast shadow drilled into Di Chuan's body. At the same time, a blood-red light surrounded Delta Origi. The moon suddenly hung high in the sky, and the moonlight bathed Delta Origi's body, making her look like a fairy under the moon. In order to alleviate the situation in his body, Lung Shiqi distributed a part of his energy to Delta Origi and the others, and chose the most suitable attributes for them. However, Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi did not receive this treatment. The two of them were not stupid and they quickly saw through the trick. Li Xinhong stared fiercely at Lung Shiqi and transmitted his voice to Li Xinqi. He is Lu Xingji, the Lu Xingji who took away Dark Thunder Manor in Ningyan County. Dark Thunder Manor in Ningyan County was a money tree. If it was gone just like that, the resources that the Li family could enjoy in the future would definitely be reduced. Cutting off one source of income was like killing one's parents. It could be said that everyone in the Li family hated Lung Shiqi to the bone now. Li Xinqi said maliciously, "Cousin, although I don't know what method this Lu Xingji used to make such a commotion, he must be in a very critical state now. Let's interrupt him and ruin his plans. It can be considered as venting our anger." "Okay, let's do that." The two of them burst out with spiritual gang, but before they could make a move, Lung Shiqi suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the two of them. Li Xinhong and Li Xinhong's movements suddenly froze, because they found that Lung Shiqi's eyes were no longer black and white, but gold and silver. There was no emotion in the golden pupils and the silver sclera, just like a god above the 9 heavens. Lung Shiqi opened his 5 fingers, and a small black dot suddenly appeared between Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi. The black dot was only the size of a pinhole and was very inconspicuous. But it was this inconspicuous little black dot that had an unparalleled suction force. With this little black dot as the center, everything within 100 feet was crushed, twisted, and finally sucked into the black dot. And the black dot also became bigger, like a black hole that was going to swallow everything. The spiritual highlands of Li Xinhong and the others were also sucked away in an instant. Not only their spiritual highlands, but even the two of them were pulled by the endless suction force. In their panic, their bodies were torn into countless pieces by 5 horses and mercilessly devoured. Looking at Lung Shiqi again, blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices, and his eyes had returned to normal. He suddenly felt his vision go black and was about to faint. At this time, the shocking vortex in the sky suddenly condensed and then disappeared without a trace. Puff! Lung Shiqi raised his head and spat out a big mouthful of blood, and then gasped for breath. Now his mind was in great pain, as if countless sharp needles were piercing back and forth. However, his willpower and mental strength were too strong. He couldn't even faint even if he wanted to. He could only forcefully endure the inhuman pain. But what was strange was that his spiritual energy was not consumed. Instead, it made great progress. With a burst of sound in his body, his cultivation directly jumped 2 levels and jumped to the 4th level of Gang Spirit Realm. He had cultivated the Divine Cycle Star Formula, a Paragon cultivation technique. He had even integrated many high-grade cultivation techniques into it. Thus, it was very difficult for him to make a breakthrough in his cultivation base. At the very least, he would have to spend several times more time compared to others. Even if he had drawn 60 years' worth of power not long ago, it only allowed him to break through one level of cultivation. But now he inexplicably broke through 2 levels in a row, and broke through the huge barrier between the early stage and the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm. But he was not too happy because his spiritual energy was almost exhausted, his primordial spirit was dying, and his spirit sea was a little broken. It would take a long time to make up for it. What confused Leng Shiqi was that he didn't understand what had happened to him at all. At first, the reason why his primordial spirit left his body was that his primordial spirit seemed to be closer to heaven and earth, so that he could better understand the things in the tomb of heaven. As for what happened later, it was an accident that was completely out of his expectation and even broke his cognition. In particular, he clearly knew that he was the one who killed Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi. These 2 people were originally on his must-kill blacklist, but the strange thing was that he didn't know what spiritual technique he used to kill them, because he didn't know the skill that could distort space at all. What was more amazing was that the spiritual energy in his body didn't decrease, which meant that it was not a spiritual skill. Since it was not a spiritual skill but it had such terrible power, then what was it? Chapter 610. Leng Shiqi looked at his left hand in a trance. It was this hand that killed 2 masters of Gang Spirit Realm in an instant. It was as simple as eating and drinking. Now his head was full of bumps and his heart was full of doubts. He was ready to think about it, but he had a big headache. He looked at Delta Origi and others who were still comprehending with their eyes closed. He sighed slightly. It seemed that the only thing he could do now was to take a rest. Helplessly, he took an elixir to nourish the spirit and closed his eyes to regulate his breath. When the day was up, the entrance of the tomb of heaven opened again. The 5 people opened their eyes at the same time. Delta Origi and others' eyes flashed with excitement more or less, because their cultivation had reached the 2nd level of Gang Spirit Realm. And they must have comprehended a lot of things. Obviously they had gained a lot. Leng Shiqi patted his sleeves and stood up. He secretly transmitted a voice to Delta Origi. "How's the harvest?" "Very good." Delta Origi said these 3 words directly, but it could be heard from her tone that she was really happy. Leng Shiqi continued, "Don't rush back to the discipline department tonight. I have a lot of important things to tell you. I'll come to you tonight." Delta Origi did not answer but nodded slightly. Then Leng Shiqi and Delta Origi walked out of the Tomb of Heaven together. Outside the entrance of the Tomb of Heaven, Eunuch Gao saw only 5 winners of the elite club coming out. He smiled secretly. It seemed that the 2 cornerstones of the Li family had died. The death of the Li brothers was a great blow to the future development of the Li family, which also made Eunuch Gao happy. But then Eunuch Gao frowned slightly, because he saw Leng Shiqi also come out. Didn't he say that he could comprehend in the Tomb of Heaven for 2 days? Why did he come out now? Leng Shiqi found that Eunuch Gao was looking at him. He secretly transmitted a voice, "Master, I've already comprehended something. As the saying goes, greed is not mastery. The current comprehension is enough for me to digest for a long time. If we continue to stay in the heavenly tomb, we won't gain anything. It will only backfire." When Eunuch Gao heard this, he praised him inwardly. "It's rare for you to understand this. Very well, come back with me first." In fact, the heavenly tomb was in a state of chaos right now. There was no place for him to comprehend at all. Moreover, his spiritual power was still in a dried-up state. Even if he was given more time, he wouldn't be able to comprehend anything. He might as well just come out and be done with it. Eunuch Gao struggled for a while before closing the heavenly tomb again. Then he led the others out of the treasury. However, what no one knew was that 2 faintly discernible voices rang out in the void of the heavenly tomb. "This person's cultivation is weak, but he possesses the power of the laws of the world. How rare. Since they can enter the heavenly tomb, they are the future pillars of the Thunderflame dynasty. Let's help them if we can." When everyone walked out of Dark Thunder Manor's treasury, Li Jueqing also walked over. He glanced around but didn't see Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi's figures. His expression immediately froze as a bad premonition arose in his heart. He asked in a deep voice, "Where are Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi? Why didn't they come out together?" Eunuch Gao pretended that he didn't hear anything and continued walking forward. Li Jueqing saw that the treasury's door was completely closed. A strong spiritual power fluctuation rose from his body as he shouted, "Steward Gao, don't you need to explain?" At this moment Eunuch Gao stopped in his tracks. He seemed to have just realized that Li Jueqing was here. He cupped his hands and said, "So it's Steward Li. I was thinking about an important matter and didn't notice Steward Li. Please forgive me." "Don't give me that." Li Jueqing pulled a long face and said, "Tell me, where did Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi go?" Eunuch Gao stuffed his arms into his sleeves and said indifferently, "It's like this. After a day we opened the heavenly tomb on time. However, the two from the Li family were nowhere to be seen. After asking around we found out that there was a sudden storm in the heavenly tomb for some reason. The elites from the elite society barely survived with their own abilities. As for the Li brothers..." Speaking of this, Eunuch Gao suddenly stopped talking. Li Jueqing's face almost turned red. The Li brothers actually died in the heavenly tomb. Li Jueqing had never heard of anyone dying in the heavenly tomb. Moreover, Eunuch Gao's words meant that the Li brothers were useless. They didn't survive because they didn't have the ability? However, Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi were the most outstanding disciples of the Li family's younger generation. They were only slightly inferior to the elites of the elite society. They were the future pillars of the Li family. These two people died. From the overall strength of the Li family, there wasn't much loss. After all, the Li family was deeply rooted. There were many spirit cultivators of the Gang spirit realm cultivated by the Li family or relying on them. However, from the perspective of family inheritance, the death of the two of them was equivalent to breaking half of the hope of the next generation of the Li family. It could be said that it was a great loss. More importantly, how could Li Jueqing believe Eunuch Gao's words? It must be Eunuch Gao who secretly killed the Li brothers. Eunuch Gao looked at Li Jueqing's expression and was very happy. It was rare to see one of the four directors lose his composure like this. However, Eunuch Gao still pretended to be surprised and said, "Director Li, you don't think it was us who did it, do you? The Li brothers are also rare talents of the Dark Thunder Guard. We can't wait to rope them in. Moreover, we can't afford the crime of murdering our comrades." Eunuch Gao. Li Jueqing was so angry that he was like a beast that was about to explode. He even shouted out Eunuch Gao's real name. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi secretly praised Eunuch Gao's brilliant method. He made Li Jueqing lose his composure after a series of sarcastic remarks. At this time he stood up and said, "Director Li, this is absolutely true. There is indeed an abnormality in the heavenly tomb. All the power has gathered to form a terrifying huge vortex. We can't comprehend anything in it at all. On the contrary, we have to resist the rampaging power all the time. We almost lost our lives. Everyone can testify to this." The other people had a great connection with Leng Shiqi. Delta Origi, Zhuge Puha, and Di Chuan said one after another that this was the case. These three people were also from the Discipline Commission and had the support of the four punishment messengers. They were really not afraid of Li Jueqing. As for Wu Diao, he also stood up after a little hesitation. Li Jueqing was silent. His eyes instantly fixed on Leng Shiqi, and there was a faint bloody light in his eyes. "Lu Xingji. It must be you who did it." Only now did he remember that Leng Shiqi's strength could not be measured by the realm. When Leng Shiqi was half a step away from Gang Spirit Realm, he could kill Elder Wan, who was at the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. Although Elder Wan was old, he was still at the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. And Leng Shiqi was now at the 4th level of Gang Spirit Realm. It was not difficult for him to kill the Li brothers if he wanted to. Thinking of this, Li Jueqing was shocked and angry. At the same time, he found that Leng Shiqi was at the 2nd level of Gang Spirit Realm before entering the Tomb of Heaven. How could he become the 4th level of Gang Spirit Realm after only one day? From this, he judged that there was no change at all in the Tomb of Heaven. It must be that Eunuch Gao and Lu Xingji had long planned to use this opportunity to suppress the Li family. Li Jueqing was full of killing intent. If he did not kill this man, he would be a big trouble in the future. Eunuch Gao stood aside and looked on with folded arms. Seeing this, Li Jueqing quickly calmed down. Having been in a high position for a long time, he knew that revenge was a dish best served cold. Besides, with Eunuch Gao here, it was impossible for him to kill Leng Shiqi. If he suddenly attacked at this moment, he would be caught. He could only swallow this big loss. Good, very good. Li Jueqing suddenly laughed, but there was endless coldness in his laughter. This time I admit defeat, but you have to keep an eye on your precious disciple, lest he accidentally dies. Eunuch Gao smiled coldly and waved his hand. You don't have to worry about this. Let's go. Leng Shiqi and others directly ignored Li Jueqing and walked straight. When they passed by, Leng Shiqi secretly transmitted a voice to him, "Eunuch Li, this is just collecting some interest." Chapter 611. At night, in a luxurious private room in the inner city of the imperial capital, Delta Origi was meditating with her eyes closed. Suddenly a figure appeared out of nowhere. Delta Origi gently opened her eyes. She didn't turn around but said directly, "Why did you take so long?" Leng Shiqi shrugged, "It's all because Eunuch Gao told me a lot of things. In short, he told me to be careful of Li Jueqing." "Yes, you killed the Li brothers. There's already an irreconcilable hatred between us. You should be careful." Delta Origi didn't know that Leng Shiqi had been assassinated by Li Jueqing. She thought that it was just a fight between the two great chiefs. Leng Shiqi didn't say anything in detail. Since things had already developed to this point, there was no need to distract Delta Origi. He was about to get down to business when Delta Origi beat him to it. Delta Origi glanced at Leng Shiqi and said, "I heard that you spent a lot of money to buy a dual cultivation technique at an auction a few months ago. You even brought back a beauty?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's eyes twitched. However, he immediately said seriously, "I was just about to tell you about this. Do you remember that I wanted to borrow some people from the Blood Garment Pavilion? That woman was sent by the Blood Garment Pavilion. She's my senior sister, Sulwan. I'm sure you've heard of her." "I see," Delta Origi nodded. "Then the assassin who killed his way into Dark Thunder Manor was also from the Blood Garment Pavilion?" "That's right. That person is the Pavilion Master's direct disciple, Feng Shamo. He's very powerful." Delta Origi suddenly exclaimed, "Huh? I heard that Feng Shamo and your master, Wuxia, are both competitors for the next Pavilion Master. Why would he help you?" Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment and shook his head. "I don't understand either. Anyway, this was arranged by the Ink Frost Ghoul. I can't guess the thoughts of such a big shot. In short, we just need to improve our strength at all costs and step into a high position. In the future, whether it's helping the Blood Garment Pavilion complete the Blood Seed plan or getting rid of the Blood Garment Pavilion's shackles, we'll have to rely on ourselves." As he said this, he began to carefully observe the subtle expressions of the Delta Origi. What he said, especially the second half of his sentence, showed his disloyalty. He wanted to see what the Delta Origi would think. If the Delta Origi were not on his side, then today's plan could be cancelled. The Delta Origi turned her head and didn't say anything, but a faint smile appeared on her face. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt relieved. He simply said bluntly, "I plan to build a force and I need your help." Hearing this, the Delta Origi's eyes narrowed slightly. It was as if time had returned to a few years ago when they were still on the Blood Mist Island. However, she immediately put on a cold face and said, "I'm not free." She still clearly remembered that when she invited Leng Shiqi to build a force with her, Leng Shiqi refused. Leng Shiqi rubbed his nose. At that time he was just a nobody on the Blood Mist Island, so it was reasonable for him to be cautious. Now he had enough strength and confidence. More importantly, the Delta Origi could be said to be the only person he could trust in this world. Therefore he planned to invite the Delta Origi to join the underworld. However, looking at the current state of the Delta Origi, it was obvious that this matter was not so easy. Leng Shiqi took out a gray-white jade slip from his mustard seed bracelet and said, "This is my sincerity. Why don't you take a look first?" The Delta Origi's gaze drifted back and forth between Leng Shiqi's face and the jade slip. In the end, she picked up the jade slip. After a few breaths, the Delta Origi showed some joy. Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. He knew that there was a chance. Recorded in the jade slip was the 9 white bone claw that he had won from the lottery. This spiritual technique was indeed very suitable for the Delta Origi. Moreover, Leng Shiqi had also written down his experience when he reached perfection. With the Delta Origi's talent and formlessness, he believed that her cultivation would improve at a rapid pace. After a short while, the Delta Origi put down the jade slip. She also wanted the 9 white bone claw, but she was a little unwilling to join Leng Shiqi's force so easily. She rolled her eyes and stretched out her hand. "Give me some of your blood essence." Blood essence? Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. What did she want his blood essence for? His body was very strong and his chi and blood were vigorous. He also had a lot of blood essence, so taking out a few drops was nothing. However, the problem was that he had the bloodlines of the Dark Shadow clan and the Star clan. In particular, the Star bloodline had been completely awakened. If someone studied his blood essence, they might discover something. However, Leng Shiqi still forced out a few drops of blood essence and gave them to the Delta Origi. The Delta Origi smiled gently and explained, I have recently created a secret technique that requires some special blood. Hearing that the Delta Origi was actually creating a secret technique, Leng Shiqi was a little surprised because he had never done this before. For example, many of his cultivation methods and spiritual techniques were fused, but strictly speaking, they were not original. In fact, with his current cultivation and understanding of various cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, he could also create some spiritual techniques and secret techniques. However, the quality would definitely not be high and it would take a lot of time, so the gains did not make up for the losses. Leng Shiqi looked at the Delta Origi. Now that he had taken the spiritual technique and the blood essence, did she have any other conditions? The Delta Origi also asked, how many people do you have in your force? How strong are they? Since she asked this question, it meant that she was already interested. However, this question also made Leng Shiqi feel a little awkward, but he could not lie, so he could only say, at the moment it's just me. Swoosh. The Delta Origi's gaze suddenly changed. Although she did not say anything, Leng Shiqi could tell from her eyes that she meant, are you kidding me? You also know that I never do things that I am not confident in. Establishing a force is very important, and not just anyone is qualified to join. The force I want doesn't care about the number of people, but the quality. Whether it's strength or potential, it can't be weak. You are the first person I thought of. Leng Shiqi said seriously, also I obtained a small secret realm by chance. It can be used as a place for a force's sect. It's very hidden and it's almost invincible. A secret realm. The Delta Origi exclaimed, you obtained a secret realm. In today's world, there were very few forces that could establish a sect in a secret realm. Only the Yin-Yang Hall, the 3 dynasties, and the 4 sacred spiritual realm had secret realms. Only hidden families like the Zhuge family had secret realms. Just as Leng Shiqi had said, controlling a secret realm meant that one was in an invincible position. Because as long as one hid within the secret realm, others wouldn't even be able to enter. So how could they attack one's forces? After thinking for a moment, the Delta Origi finally nodded and said, I can join your force, but other than the 9 Yin white bone claw and the blood essence, you have to promise me something. What is it? I haven't thought about it yet. The Delta Origi blinked. Leng Shiqi suddenly felt a headache. Another favor like this and it was really a headache. After all, his spiritual power was almost exhausted, and he had not had time to recover. However, as long as he could get the Delta Origi to join him, he would agree to anything, let alone a favor. He immediately patted his chest and said, okay, I promise to be on call. The Delta Origi then asked, what is this force called? Seeing that the Delta Origi agreed, Leng Shiqi finally breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, welcome to the underworld. Chapter 612. Just after Delta Origi agreed, Leng Shiqi opened the system interface and chose the option to invite a member of the territory. A system prompt suddenly appeared before his eyes. Do you want to invite the other party to join the Mansion of the Dead? Yes. Immediately, a palm-sized mark of the netherworld appeared between Leng Shiqi and Delta Origi. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the Delta Origi's body. However, the Delta Origi did not seem to notice it. At the same time, Leng Shiqi's system interface also showed the basic information of Delta Origi, including cultivation, techniques, common spiritual skills and so on. More importantly, Leng Shiqi discovered that he could control the mark that had just drilled into the Delta Origi's body. It seemed to be something like a seal. As long as he willed it, he could directly take away the life of Delta Origi. The territory system actually has such a trick up its sleeve? Leng Shiqi was also a little surprised. For Delta Origi, he naturally did not need to use such a method. However, the Mansion of the Dead would eventually expand, and it would take in more members in the future. With this guarantee, it meant that he had the power to kill the members of the Mansion of the Dead, which was indeed very advantageous. Immediately after, another system prompt appeared. The territory upgrade conditions have been met. Would you like to spend 5,000 system coins to upgrade the territory? No. Leng Shiqi was not in a hurry to upgrade now. After all, he still had things to do tonight. It would not be too late to upgrade after everything was arranged. Delta Origi curiously asked, where is that arcane realm of yours? What does it look like? Since Delta Origi had already become a member of the Mansion of the Dead, Lung Shichi had nothing to hide. He said, "The Mansion of the Dead is actually with me. It's just that it's not convenient to enter the Mansion of the Dead now. I'll take you in to have a look in a few days." Delta Origi rolled her eyes at him and said in a bad mood, "If there's nothing else, let's go. Lei Mayan is still waiting for me to report back. I'll look for you in a few days." After saying that, Lung Shichi disappeared in a flash. In fact, after the Delta Origi became members of the underworld, he could directly bring the Delta Origi into the underworld. The reason why he didn't want the Delta Origi to enter was because the current underworld was simply too shabby. If the Delta Origi saw the Mansion of the Dead, which was not even comparable to a small village, they might just turn around and leave in a fit of anger. Therefore, Lung Shichi planned to wait until the Mansion of the Dead was upgraded before bringing the Delta Origi in to take a look. After leaving, Lung Shichi did not return to Dark Thunder Manor. Instead, he traveled through the streets of the inner city like a ghost. Soon he arrived at an inconspicuous alley. Zhuge Puha was waiting for him here. After everyone left the heavenly tomb, Lung Shichi sent a voice transmission to Zhuge Puha to meet him here. He was prepared to hand over the Star Clan's secret treasure that he had obtained in Tranquil Sun County. There were too many high-grade resources in that batch of treasures. Lung Shichi was also very envious when he saw them. He had also taken a portion of them for himself, but even so, he took out dozens of mustard seed bags and handed them to Zhuge Puha. Zhuge Puha opened one of them and his eyes widened. He could not believe what he saw. He actually saw countless high-grade materials. What shocked him even more was that these materials were basically ancient materials that had been extinct for a long time. Most of them were star system materials, which were very suitable for the spirit cultivators of the Zhuge family. Although the Zhuge family had accumulated a large number of experts over the past hundreds of thousands of years, one should not forget that the strength of a spirit cultivator was not only dependent on the cultivation realm. Spirit weapons were also a very important factor that affected the level of strength. As long as they had these high-grade materials, there was hope to refine a large number of high-grade spirit weapons, which would greatly increase the overall combat power of the Zhuge family. In the future, they would have more confidence to restore the glory of the Star Clan. Zhuge Puha was stunned and could not say a word for a long time. Lung Shichi could only say, "Brother Zhuge, I have already obtained the secret treasure of Tranquil Sun County. According to the terms of the transaction, I have also kept a portion of the materials. I will have to trouble you to pass the rest to Senior Zhuge Yun. My business with the Zhuge family has come to an end. Farewell." Before Zhuge Puha could react, Lung Shichi quickly used Remnant Wind and Lightning Light steps to leave the place. After he had seen the thousands of experts in the Zhuge family and the secret treasure of Tranquil Sun County, he knew that the Star Clan had indeed left behind many backup plans. This also meant that the Zhuge family would come out sooner or later. When that time came, there would be a storm that would sweep across the entire Falling Star continent. Therefore, it was better for Lung Shichi to keep a certain distance from the Zhuge family and the Star Clan. When Lung Shichi returned to the Xingji Pavilion of the Dark Thunder Mansion, he immediately went into the Mansion of the Dead. He came to the front of the Gate of the Dead. At this moment, there were already 1,000 or 2,000 souls floating around. Almost all of these souls were people who had died in the Baranchuan tribe and the Wasteland tribe. A small portion of them were the Dark Thunder Guards of Tranquil Sun County led by Li Zhangtao. Of course, there were also the Li brothers who had just died. With so many souls gathered here, they were emitting a terrifying aura of the netherworld. They even crowded the front of the Gate of the Dead. Lung Shichi summoned the system and chose to upgrade territory. Spending 5,000 system coins to upgrade territory. Territory upgrading. Territory upgrade successful. In an instant, the entire Mansion of the Dead shook, and black gas filled the sky. The area of the Mansion of the Dead expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it was more than 10 miles wide. Gradually, the black gas dissipated, revealing brand new buildings. Lung Shichi looked around and saw that the Gate of the Dead had expanded several times. Its original dilapidated appearance was no longer there. Although it was still made of wood, at least it looked like it was still there. Creak, creak. Suddenly the Gate of the Dead opened, and a strange aura of the netherworld spread out. The souls that were originally floating outside seemed to be attracted by something and began to walk into the Gate of the Dead and set foot on the road to the underworld. The road to the underworld was now 7 or 8 miles long. It was not crowded at all for 1 or 2,000 souls to walk through. Leng Shiqi curiously followed behind. He wanted to see what would happen to these souls after they walked through the road to the underworld. However, he was a little disappointed not long after because these souls all stopped at the end of the road to the underworld. They did not walk onto the bridge of helplessness, just like before when they stopped outside the gate of the dead. Leng Shiqi suddenly thought of something. He thought to himself, how far these souls can walk seems to be related to the level of the mansion of the dead. Thinking of this, he went directly to the end of the mansion of the dead, which was in front of the gate of the Fengdu necropolis. The gate was still tightly shut. When he came here, he saw the conditions for the mansion of the dead to continue upgrading. Current level of the mansion of the dead, Tier 1. Conditions for upgrading the mansion of the dead. 1. Collect 1,000 souls. 178310000. 2. 10,000 system coins. Conditions for upgrading the mansion of the dead have been met. Would you like to spend 10,000 system coins to upgrade the mansion of the dead? Chapter 613. Seeing this system information, Leng Shiqi was secretly delighted. He did not know that he had unintentionally completed the requirements to continue upgrading the mansion of the dead. However, upgrading the mansion of the dead required him to spend another 10,000 system coins. This made his heart ache a little because he had already spent 5,000 system coins when he first upgraded the mansion of the dead. Now he only had a little more than 10,000 system coins left. He could not help but sigh. Although it was now easier to obtain system coins, there were still too many things that he needed to spend them on. However, he still needed to upgrade the mansion of the dead. He immediately chose yes. His system coins were instantly emptied. The mansion of the dead continued to expand once again. It only stopped when it was dozens of miles wide. It was already comparable to the size of a city. All the buildings had also become brick structures. The surroundings were also emitting traces of black gas. The air was also filled with a faint aura of death. There were also more than 1,000 souls slowly floating around. If a normal person were to enter this place, they would definitely be scared witless. At this time, the souls continued to move forward as Leng Shiqi had previously guessed. They stepped onto the Naraka bridge in front of them. At this moment, the Naraka bridge was no longer the tattered little wooden bridge from before. Instead, it was a gray stone bridge covered in fog. At the end of the Naraka bridge there was a small muddy pool. It was this small pool that attracted all the souls. They subconsciously cupped a handful of the pool water and drank it. After drinking the pool water, the souls would become thinner. It could also be said that they would become purer. Leng Shiqi stood next to the small pool. Could this be the legendary Mengpo's soup? However, just as he was wondering, he suddenly realized that he had a slight connection with the souls that had drunk the pool water. It was as if as long as he willed it, he could disperse their souls and prevent them from entering the cycle of reincarnation. What surprised him even more was that a new option had appeared in the territory interface. It was called Ghost Slave. Drinking Mengpo's soup meant that you had cut off everything from your previous life. From then on, you would be under the control of Leng Shiqi, the master of the mansion of the dead. He could decide the fate of these souls at will. For example, he could turn souls into his own ghost slaves for his own use. With the current level of the underworld, the Leng Shiqi can only have 2 ghost slaves at most, and the strength of a ghost slave is closely related to its cultivation when it was alive. After learning about this, Leng Shiqi immediately found Li Zhangtao's ghost. He tapped his finger lightly and a black light entered Li Zhangtao's soul. Immediately, Li Zhangtao's body was surrounded by black gas, which formed a set of ragged clothes. There was a large word slave on his chest. His originally sluggish expression became somewhat ferocious. In the end, he walked up to Leng Shiqi with a pious expression and knelt down heavily. Greetings, Nether Lord. Leng Shiqi looked at this unparalleled unity of heaven and man expert who was now kneeling in front of him. He whispered, Li Zhangtao, if you are alive, I will end your life. If you are dead, you will still be a slave. I have no deep enmity with you, but unfortunately you and I have our own masters, so you can't blame me. However, Li Zhangtao didn't seem to understand what Leng Shiqi was saying. He was still kneeling on the ground, motionless. Leng Shiqi said, Get up. Li Zhangtao stood up shakily. At this time, Leng Shiqi noticed that Li Zhangtao, who was now a ghost slave, was emitting an aura that was equivalent to a spirit cultivator in the spirit pulse realm. In terms of strength, it was greatly reduced. However, he also found some characteristics of ghost slaves from the system's information. Ghost slaves can also leave the underworld to carry out activities, but they can't be too far away from Leng Shiqi. Moreover, ghost slaves also have various strange abilities. For example, normal people can't see them with the naked eye. They can also possess other people's bodies. They are very similar to the ghosts in Leng Shiqi's ghost stories from his previous life. Leng Shiqi touched his chin. Although Li Zhangtao, this ghost slave, was not strong, he had some special abilities. If used well, it could have unexpected effects. At this time, the system's information popped up again. Ghost slave transformation successful. Please name the ghost slave. I still need a name? Leng Shiqi was stunned for a moment, but then he thought that Li Zhangtao was no longer Li Zhangtao after drinking Meng Po's soup. It was only right to change the name. He thought for a moment and said, then let's call him Li Gui. Naming successful. Li Gui seemed to have sensed it. He knelt on the ground again as if he was grateful to Leng Shiqi for naming him. However, he seemed to be unable to speak. He could only make weak woo-woo sounds. Leng Shiqi gently waved his hand and a force pulled Li Gui up. Li Gui, when I'm not in the underworld, I'll leave this place to you to patrol. Don't let other ghosts cause trouble. When Li Gui heard this, his head immediately nodded like garlic. Next, Leng Shiqi walked directly to the gate of Fengdu City. He did not transform another ghost slave. Li Zhangtao, a master of the oneness of heaven and men realm, was turned into a ghost slave, so he only had the power of spiritual pulse realm left. Then, other masters of the gang spirit realm would be even weaker, so they would not occupy a place of ghost slave. He walked to the gate of Fengdu City, where the conditions for the next upgrade of the underworld were displayed. The current level of the territory of the underworld, Tier 2. Conditions for the upgrade of the territory of the underworld. 1. Recruit 2 members of the underworld, February 2nd. 2. Collect 3,000 souls, 03000. 3. 20,000 system coins. Seeing the conditions for the upgrade of the underworld from Tier 2 to Tier 3, Leng Shiqi could not help but rub his head. First, he had to recruit 2 more members of the underworld. This was a little easier. He already had a preliminary candidate in mind. Moreover, he knew that after someone joined the underworld, he could control their life and death at any time. As a result, the range of people could be expanded. Therefore, the first condition was relatively simple. As for the second condition, it was a bit of a headache. Because he originally had more than 1,000 souls, but that did not count. Besides, if there were no disasters or difficulties, where could he get so many souls? Did he have to start a massacre himself? There was also the last condition. It was very simple and clear. It required 20,000 system coins. 20,000 system coins was naturally affordable for Leng Shiqi now. However, the underworld was only at Tier 2 now. He could also see that every time the underworld upgraded, the cost of the system coins would double. In the future, this would increase to an astronomical figure. He immediately felt that he had to tighten his wallet again. Fortunately, this should be a problem that he would have to consider for a long time. Now, the most important thing was to seize the time to fully recover his primordial spirit and mental strength so that he could maintain his peak condition. Thinking of this, he left the underworld and closed his eyes to adjust his breath. Chapter 6:14. A few days later, Leng Shiqi finally replenished his exhausted mental energy. During these few days, he had been recalling everything that had happened in the heavenly tomb. However, the more he thought about it, the more bizarre he felt and the more confused he became. Moreover, he didn't notice any changes in his body. Other than his cultivation being 1 level higher, there were no other changes. Although he didn't have any clues, he guessed that it might be related to the law of heaven and earth, that the mysterious figures in the heavenly tomb spoke of. Unfortunately, the law of heaven and earth was too far away from Leng Shiqi. He didn't have the qualifications to pry into it at all, so he didn't think about it anymore. He would just treat it as gaining 2 levels of cultivation in the heavenly tomb, which would save him a lot of cultivation time. Leng Shiqi walked out of the secret room and was about to find the Delta Origi. Who would have thought that he would meet Heifeichen, who was in a hurry? Sir, Steward Gao is here. It seems to be urgent. Heifeichen quickly said. He came personally? Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. Normally, if Eunuch Gao had something to say to him, he would summon him. Now that Eunuch Gao came personally, it meant that the matter was indeed urgent. Lung Shiqi used remnant wind lightning light steps and arrived at the meeting hall of Xingji Pavilion in a few breaths. Eunuch Gao was indeed sitting on the main seat. "Greetings, master. No need to be so courteous. I came this time to tell you that I will bring you to participate in a grand event in a while," Eunuch Gao said solemnly. There was a hint of respect in his tone. Lung Shiqi asked doubtfully, "What grand event is it? Why does master place so much importance on it?" Eunuch Gao said solemnly, "The 70th birthday banquet of the current emperor." "The 70th birthday banquet of the emperor." Lung Shiqi couldn't help but raise his voice. He wasn't very surprised. Instead, he thought of many things in an instant. Everyone knew that the emperor of the Thunderfire dynasty, Lei Qingjun, didn't have much time left. All his thoughts were on making arrangements after his death so that the Thunderfire dynasty could continue to stabilize. How could he have the time to celebrate his 70th birthday? But Lei Qingjun still did it, so this matter was worth pondering. Lung Shiqi guessed that Lei Qingjun might want to use this birthday banquet as an opportunity to do something. Eunuch Gao nodded and said, "His Majesty's birthday banquet this time is a universal celebration. It is scheduled for half a year from now. At that time, all the upper echelons of the Thunderblaze dynasty, as well as the first-rate and top-notch sects, will enter the imperial capital to celebrate. Even the Starfall dynasty, the Northern Wei dynasty, and the 6 kingdoms of the western region would send envoys over. When the time came, the entire imperial capital would be filled with experts and influential figures from all over the world. In order to maintain the stability of the imperial city, we, the Dark Thunder Guards, have a great responsibility. Everyone who enters the imperial city, regardless of their status or cultivation, must have their backgrounds thoroughly investigated. Absolutely do not allow anyone of unknown origin to enter." Hearing this, Lung Shiqi's expression also became serious. When that time came, there would probably be tens of thousands of people pouring into the imperial capital. Moreover, each of them was either holding a powerful fist or had a profound cultivation base. How could it be easy to investigate all of them? The most troublesome ones were the people from the Starfall dynasty and the Northern Wei dynasty. They were one of the 3 dynasties alongside the Thunderblaze dynasty, and they were constantly at war with each other. How could they behave themselves when they came to celebrate? Lung Shiqi could foresee that in the future, the imperial capital would truly become a turbulent undercurrent. The slightest carelessness would cause it to turn into ashes. But there's no need to worry too much. The Dark Thunder Guards will only be in charge of screening and monitoring in the dark. There will still be patrolling guards in the front. That's also a hot potato. Eunuch Gao sighed and said, "Moreover, His Majesty's birthday banquet is not a place where anyone can come as they wish. The invitations have already been sent out. We only need to investigate according to the list of names on the invitations." Lung Shiqi thought to himself that it would be much simpler in this way. However, it would require a large number of people to spread out such a large number of people. The people in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards were far from enough. Eunuch Gao naturally understood this. He said, "All the sects or forces on the invitations will be carefully investigated by the local Dark Thunder Guards. However, the most troublesome ones are the people from the other 2 dynasties and the 6 countries of the western region. Especially this time, the envoys from the Starfall dynasty and the 6 countries of the western region will enter the Thunderblaze dynasty from the Western Wilderness Prefecture. It can be said that the Western Wilderness Prefecture is the most important place. The inspector of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, Yu Ruifeng, can't take care of it all. The day before yesterday he asked me for more people. Those people in my family are all good at fighting for power and profit. However, only you can do this. In addition, you were born in the Dark Thunder Guards of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, so you are the most suitable person to go there. As long as you can smoothly bring the envoys from the 6 countries of the Western region and the Starfall dynasty to the imperial capital, it will be a great merit. Even if you take the position of deputy director with the cultivation of Gang Spirit Realm, no one will dare to say anything. Lung Shiqi understood that Eunuch Gao was asking him to make a merit. However, this merit was not so easy to get. Although the 6 countries of the Western region were called the 6 countries of the Western region, in fact, these 6 small countries were sandwiched between the Thunderblaze dynasty and the Starfall dynasty. The total area of the 6 countries was equivalent to the size of 5 or 6 prefectures. They existed completely as a buffer zone between the 2 dynasties. Because of their small size, these 6 countries often attacked each other. The hatred between them had been accumulated for many years. It could be imagined that it was impossible for the envoys of the 6 countries to stay together. This matter alone was enough to give people a headache, not to mention that the Starfall dynasty would also send people here. Among the 3 dynasties in the world, the Starfall dynasty was the most powerful, had the most profound foundation, and had the most vast territory. The Starfall dynasty had been passed down for thousands of years, more than twice as long as the Thunderblaze dynasty. Its national strength was very strong and it had always been ambitious. From the name of the dynasty, it could be seen that the Starfall dynasty had the ambition to swallow the whole Starfall continent. Lei Qingjun was critically ill, but he wanted to hold a birthday banquet. The Starfall dynasty naturally came with the intention of sounding him out. They wanted to see how long Lei Qingjun could hold on. Let's see who might take over his position. Most importantly, it was extremely likely that the Starfall dynasty would secretly plant a few spies in the Thunderblaze dynasty during this process, and Leng Shiqi had to be on guard against all of this. So, this mission was absolutely not easy. However, what Eunuch Gao said was right. If Leng Shiqi could complete this mission perfectly, he would be rewarded with merits and could be promoted to one of the 36 deputy directors of the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. He would become a powerful figure. So he said loudly, "I will do my best and will never disgrace you, but the manpower, in terms of manpower, you can take away all the guards under your command. I have already informed you, Ruifeng. All the Dark Thunder Guards in the Western Desert Province are at your disposal. In addition, I have also specially assigned an assistant to you." Speaking until here, Eunuch Gao clapped his hands and a figure walked out. Leng Shiqi turned to look and felt that the figure was a little familiar. Chapter 6:15. The person who came looked like a young man. His face was pale and he looked a little like Eunuch Gao. Leng Shiqi knew that this person must be someone from the palace. He suddenly remembered that when he first came to the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard to meet Eunuch Gao, it was this person who was talking to Eunuch Gao. At that time, the two of them just met face to face and didn't even speak a word. Eunuch Gao pointed to the man and said, "He is the most outstanding one among my many adopted sons. His name is Gao Yi and he is at the peak of Gang Spirit Realm. He will go to the Western Wilderness Prefecture with you this time." Gao Yi smiled, but his smile looked a bit fake. "I often hear my adoptive father mention Brother Lu. Now I see you with my own eyes. No wonder you are the head of the elite society." Leng Shiqi sneered secretly. It seemed that Gao Yi didn't remember that they had met once. Presumably, Gao Yi didn't take him seriously at that time. He made an obeisance and said a few polite words. Eunuch Gao continued, "This mission is headed by Lu Xingji. Gao Yi, you have to assist him wholeheartedly. In addition, your most important task is to find out the identity and background of all the people who enter the territory. Don't get into conflicts with the delegation easily. Even if you find something fishy, don't be impulsive. It's better to leave it to the people who receive the delegation, or let the discipline department of the Western Wilderness Prefecture do it. Do you understand?" Leng Shiqi and Gao Yi's hearts were as clear as a mirror. How could they not understand Eunuch Gao's meaning? Once you make a move against the envoys of the 6 kingdoms of the Western region or the Starfall dynasty, no matter what the reason is, then you will naturally have to bear all the consequences. Therefore they couldn't be blamed easily. They just needed to take credit. I understand. Good. You all go to prepare. Tomorrow we will set off for the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Eunuch Gao left in a hurry. It seemed that the birthday banquet made him very busy. After Eunuch Gao left, Gao Yi stopped smiling and said, "I often hear the name of Brother Lu in the palace. As the head of the elite society, you shocked the Dark Thunder Guards and defeated the Extermination Thunder Alliance. I really admire you for becoming the eunuch in such a short time." Leng Shiqi could hear a bit of jealousy in his tone. He laughed in his heart. This Gao Yiren was two-faced. It was really the style of someone in the palace. Since Eunuch Gao sent him in, as long as he behaved himself, Leng Shiqi didn't want to pay much attention to him. However, Gao Yi didn't seem to think that way. A faint cold underworld chi seeped out of his body as he said, "I've long heard that Brother Lu's strength is extraordinary. I'm itching to learn from you." Leng Shiqi's eyes narrowed. He could see that Gao Yi's cultivation technique was also the cold nether treasure manual. It was no wonder that people who knew that he had cultivated this technique thought that he was also someone from the palace. Gao Yi snorted lightly and a bone-piercing cold nether energy appeared. Incomparably sharp icicles carrying traces of nether energy shot out from Gao Yi, rapidly spreading out. In the blink of an eye, Xingji Pavilion had become a dead zone. Lung Shiqi also released a dense amount of cold nether energy and used the same spiritual technique. This was the spiritual technique of the Cold Nether Treasure Book, Cold Nether Hell. The two cold nether hells collided with each other. Endless cold energy and nether energy wreaked havoc, especially at the intersection. The ground cracked and the sky darkened. Lung Shiqi's cold nether hell was gradually suppressing Gao Yi. Gao Yi's eyes suddenly became gloomy. His cultivation was clearly several levels higher than Lung Shiqi's. He had also cultivated the cold nether hell for a long time and had already reached the large success stage. He didn't understand. What was the difference between him and Lung Shiqi? Gao Yi didn't know that Lung Shiqi's cold nether hell was at the great perfection stage. Moreover, Lung Shiqi cultivated the heavenly cycle star god art, which was a fusion of many high-level cultivation methods. His foundation was not weaker than Gao Yi's. Adding on the strength of his body, it was easy for him to suppress Gao Yi. However, he didn't just want to suppress him. Then Lung Shiqi's mind moved. The dark cold nether hell was dyed with layers of demonic crimson. All of the ice instantly turned into crimson ice crystals. Lung Shiqi's cold nether hell strength immediately increased. It rushed into Gao Yi's cold nether hell like a whale and tore a huge hole in it. This was the result of Lung Shiqi fusing the crimson ice crystal technique into the cold nether hell, crimson nether hell. Lung Shiqi hadn't used this technique since fusing it. It was a good time to test it out on Gao Yi. It seemed that the power was quite good. What? Gao Yi exclaimed. He immediately sent out another palm. Cold nether energy howled and chilling wind blew. Several palm shadows fell and barely blocked Lung Shiqi's attack. However, he was forced back more than 10 steps. Lung Shiqi didn't continue to attack. Instead, he looked at Gao Yi quietly. Gao Yi also stopped, but his face didn't look good. However, he still smiled and said, "Brother Lu's strength is really tyrannical. I admire you. By the way, I'm going to the Western Wilderness Prefecture to get some credit. I'll listen to your arrangements. If there's anything you need me to do, just tell me." After a simple fight, Gao Yi, a spirit cultivator at the peak of Spirit Astral Realm, was completely suppressed by Lung Shiqi. Although they were not fighting to the death, Gao Yi could see from this that if Lung Shiqi wanted to kill him, it didn't seem to be particularly difficult. Therefore he completely put away his thoughts. "I don't dare." Lung Shiqi quickly waved his hand and said, "You and I are both working for Master. We help each other, we help each other." After all, Gao Yi was still the adopted son of eunuch Gao. Lung Shiqi had to give him some face. At the same time, he also tried his current strength in the fight with Gao Yi. After he broke through the middle stage of Spirit Astral Realm, all his strength became stronger. Even if he faced the peak of Spirit Astral Realm, he could completely dominate. Then he sent Gao Yi out while talking and laughing. Lung Shiqi didn't believe that Gao Yi's purpose was so simple, but he was too lazy to care too much. As long as he didn't mess up his business, it was fine. He asked He Feichen to gather all the guards. Soon all the 5 War Thunder Guards were gathered. Including Feng Shiamo and himself, Lung Shiqi now had the high-end fighting strength of 7 Spirit Astral Realm cultivators. There were also dozens of spirit cultivators of Spirit Astral Realm. This kind of fighting strength was far beyond the second-rate forces, and could even compete with the first-rate forces. Lung Shiqi told everyone about the mission as quickly as possible. After everyone heard it, the atmosphere suddenly became heavy. If they were asked to fight purely with the enemy, they were very good at it. But this time, their goal was the envoys of the 6 countries of the Western region and the Starfall dynasty. Those people couldn't be touched casually, otherwise, a little carelessness would lead to a disaster. Lung Shiqi looked at everyone's expression and said coldly, "What, are you afraid? The mission this time is indeed not simple. I have always believed in one sentence, and that is, difficulties and opportunities coexist. Just like the last time when I wiped out the Thunder Alliance, the whole Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters didn't believe that I could complete it, but what was the result? I not only completed it, but also won a great victory and directly sat in the position of the Imperial Supervisor. I won't say much nonsense. If you want to have a meteoric rise, if you want to climb up, then rush forward with me. In addition, my subordinates never raise trash. If anyone thinks they are trash, they can leave now. I will never stop them." Chapter 616. When everyone heard the first half of the speech, their blood was boiling, but when they heard the last sentence, they all shivered. Even though they had not been in contact with Leng Shiqi for a long time, they were very clear about his misdeeds. If anyone really dared to walk out now, only a corpse would be left. Everyone immediately shouted in unison, "This subordinate will do his best to share Sir's worries." Leng Shiqi waved his hand and ordered, "Very good, I will give you half a day to prepare. Tomorrow you will directly teleport to the Western Desolate Province." Everyone retreated one after another. Leng Shiqi also planned to prepare, but a voice came from outside. "Greetings, Miss Lian Yi." "Congratulations, Miss Lian Yi's cultivation has improved again. Miss Lian Yi is here to see Sir Lu, right? Please come in." Leng Shiqi's footsteps paused. He turned to look outside and saw Lian Yi walking over. He could not help but think, what is she doing here again? Nothing good. He still remembered that last time, in order to help Lian Yi get rid of the 9th Prince Lei Haoqing, he even did something like assassinating a prince. What was she planning this time? However, Lian Yi was after all the adopted daughter of the Dark Thunder Guard's commander, Heavenly Sovereign Black Flame. For this relationship he should still welcome her. "Miss Lian Yi, long time no see. It hasn't been long. You don't seem to want to see me?" Lian Yi narrowed her eyes. Leng Shiqi immediately shook his head and said, "What are you saying? Miss Lian Yi, may I know why you have come here?" "Boring." Lian Yi curled her lips and said, "I came to thank you. Last time, when you went to assassinate Lei Haoqing, I did not expect that it would cause a series of disturbances. Fortunately, it did not implicate you. However, the effect was quite good. Since then, Lei Haoqing has been holed up and has not caused any trouble for me. As for the shield you mentioned, there is no need for that. This is what I should do. There is no need to thank me. Actually, there is absolutely no need for me. It is just that father insisted that I come." Lian Yi gave Leng Shiqi a strange look and continued, "Father, he wants to see you." "What?" Leng Shiqi was shocked. Heavenly Venerable Black Flame wanted to see him? In Leng Shiqi's impression, the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, Heavenly Lord He Yen, was extremely mysterious. Not to mention him, even the people who had been in the Dark Thunder Guards headquarters for several years had never seen Heavenly Lord He Yen appear. But now, Heavenly Venerable Black Flame actually wanted to see him? For a time, all sorts of thoughts flashed through Leng Shiqi's mind. He couldn't think of why Empyrean Black Flame wanted to see him, but it shouldn't be anything bad. I also find it very strange. Foster father rarely takes the initiative to meet people. You can be considered to have hit the jackpot. Lian Yi said sourly. Leng Shiqi smiled. That's all thanks to Miss Lian Ye's recommendation. May I know where the Grand Commander is and when can we go see him? I don't know where foster father is, but you can see him right now. Lian Yi suddenly said something that didn't make sense. Soon after, a black flame bloomed in her palm. Suddenly the world changed. Leng Shiqi instantly arrived in a black flame hell. In the sky, a giant face slowly appeared. A face completely composed of countless black flames condensed. When the giant eyes opened, Leng Shiqi felt a terrifying pressure fall on him like Mount Tai. Leng Shiqi's face immediately paled. All the muscles in his body seemed to be squeezed to the point of bursting. He almost couldn't stand still. He let out a low shout and instantly activated the wild evil demon blood beast body. An ancient, evil and ominous aura filled the air. At the same time he used the throbbing pulse of the earth. The powerful anti-gravity force propped up a curtain of light to make him feel better. Suddenly, the pressure disappeared without a trace and a deep voice rang out, "You do have some skills." Leng Shiqi cupped his fists towards the sky and said, "Greetings, Grand Commander." Heavenly Sage He Yen suddenly asked, "Did you kill Li Zhangtao?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's heart tightened. He didn't know what the relationship between Heavenly Sage He Yen and the Li family was, and he couldn't hear anything from the other's tone. However, he still raised his head and said, "Yes." "Did you also kill Li Xinhong and Li Xinqi?" "Yes." There were very few people who knew about the death of the Li brothers. It seemed that Li Jueqing might have sent a message to Heavenly Sage He Yen. Leng Shiqi didn't deny it. He thought that Heavenly Sage He Yen would blame him, but unexpectedly, Heavenly Sage He Yen said 3 words. "Good job." Leng Shiqi. Hearing these 3 words, Leng Shiqi instantly thought of many things. He was now sure that even the Grand Commander didn't want the Li family to continue taking root in the Dark Thunder Guard. Especially in this turbulent time, once the new emperor ascended the throne, the Li family would have the opportunity to seize more positions. At that time, it would be even more difficult to solve this problem. Leng Shiqi killed Li Zhangtao in Ningyang County and took away the Li family's money tree. It could be said that he cut off one of the Li family's arms. He also killed the Li brothers in the Heavenly Tomb, which could be considered as breaking the Li family's foundation. Right now, the Li clan had Li Jueqing and several experts who were at the unity of heaven and man realm supporting them. The youngest generation also had good potential. However, the problem was that when Li Jueqing's generation had either aged or died, the younger generation had yet to grow to the point where they could support the Li clan. Then, at that time, the Li family would fall into an extremely dangerous situation where there was a shortage of manpower. Therefore, although Leng Shiqi only killed 3 people from the Li family, these 3 people were very important to the Li family. Leng Shiqi himself didn't expect that he only wanted to complete Eunuch Gao's mission and avenge himself. In the end, he went along with the Grand Commander's wishes. It could be said that he unintentionally planted a willow tree and it became a shade. Heavenly Sage He Yen reminded him, however, Li Jueqing is not magnanimous. You have to be careful. Leng Shiqi had already experienced Li Jueqing's magnanimity. However, Heavenly Sage He Yen did remind him that his trip to the Western Desolate County was not a secret. Li Jueqing would naturally know. If Leng Shiqi stayed in the imperial capital, Li Jueqing might not be able to kill him. However, if he left the imperial capital and went to the borderlands, where the emperor was far away, Li Jueqing would very likely secretly attack him. Therefore he had always been very vigilant. Then again, did Heavenly Sage He Yen want to see him just to ask him this? There must be something else. Sure enough, Heavenly Sage He Yen continued, your trip to the Western Desolate County is not only to smoothly welcome the envoys of the Starfall Dynasty and the 6 kingdoms of the Western region. There is also an even more important mission. At the end, Heavenly Sage He Yan's tone was a bit heavy. This made Leng Shiqi feel that the mission was definitely not simple. Please tell me, Grand Commander. You also need to secretly sow discord between the 6 kingdoms of the Western region and the Starfall Dynasty, especially between the Golden Tribe and the Tuoba Kingdom. In addition, that girl Lian Yi will go with you. The 6 kingdoms of the Western region were the Zhu Lu Kingdom, the Bei Lu Kingdom, the Jushir Kingdom, the Golden Tribe and the Tuoba Kingdom. These 6 small kingdoms constantly had friction with each other, and they were also on good terms with the Thunderblaze Dynasty and the Starfall Dynasty. Due to their geographical location, the Zhu Lu Kingdom and the Bei Lu Kingdom were leaning towards the Thunderblaze Dynasty, while the Golden Tribe and the Tuoba Kingdom were on good terms with the Starfall Dynasty. As for the Jushir Kingdom and the Great Yuezhi Kingdom, they were located in the center of the 6 kingdoms of the Western region. They were also the 2 strongest kingdoms. Leng Shiqi listened to Heavenly Sage He Yan's words. It seemed that he wanted the Golden Tribe, the Tuoba Kingdom, and the Starfall Dynasty to become enemies. If he could really do this, the Starfall Dynasty would definitely be flustered for a while. Perhaps they would not have so much time to deal with the Thunderblaze Dynasty. However, the problem was that instigating the relationship between the 3 parties conflicted with Leng Shiqi's mission. The mission given to him by Eunuch Gao was to investigate the innocence of the people who came to celebrate the birthday, and secretly protect the diplomatic group as they entered the imperial capital. However, if Leng Shiqi instigated the relationship between the 3 parties, it would be hard to avoid some trouble. At that time, it would be easier said than done to smoothly enter the imperial capital. This mission was not simple. However, what made Leng Shiqi puzzled was, why would Lian Yi follow him? It was not that Leng Shiqi looked down on her, but that Lian Yi's cultivation was still at the early stage of the spirit aperture realm. Any of the War Thunder Guards under him had a higher cultivation than her, so there was no need for her to fight. As for ability and strategy, Leng Shiqi admitted that Lian Yi was indeed more mature than before. However, compared to those experienced Dark Thunder Guards, she was still far from being comparable. Bringing Lian Yi with him was the same as bringing a burden. Of course, he could not say this out loud. No matter how difficult it was in his heart, he still said, "Commander, please be at ease. This subordinate will definitely complete the mission." Since the commander had personally spoken, there was no reason for him to refuse. Moreover, whether it was strength or influence, he had already formed his wings. It was not impossible for him to complete the mission. "I didn't expect you to agree so easily." Heavenly Sage He Yen said, "I will be frank. Lian Yi will go with you to accumulate some merits." At this moment, Leng Shiqi bitterly smiled in his heart. Eunuch Gao and the commander were both stuffing people with him to gain merits. Weren't they too confident in him? From another point of view, Lian Yi was the commander's adopted daughter, yet she still wanted to accumulate merits. It could be seen that the commander also attached great importance to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards. Otherwise he could have just directly arranged a position for Lian Yi. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Heavenly Sage He Yen continued, I see that you have a heavenly strange flame in your body. You know the power of heavenly variance the best. If you can successfully return from the Western Desolate Province, I can give you a piece of information. A piece of information that records the location of heavenly variance. Whoosh! Lung Shiqi suddenly raised his head, his eyes revealing undisguised joy. He was well aware of the power of heavenly variance. His crimson gold earth dragon flame had yet to meet a match. If he could obtain another heavenly variant, no matter what attribute it was, it would definitely cause his strength to explosively rise once more. However, before Lung Shiqi could speak, the world of black flames suddenly began to disperse. Heavenly Sage He Yen said, the time has come. I await your good news. Immediately after, the scene in front of Lung Shiqi changed, and he once again saw the familiar Xingji pavilion. He said to Lian Yi, who was still waiting on the side, Miss Lian Yi, prepare to go to the Western Desolate Province. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.